You are listening to the Mountainside Podcast, and our guest for this episode is Chris Camozzi. He's a top-ranked bare knuckle FC fighter, UFC veteran, the co-host of the Involuntary Yoga podcast. I really enjoyed his company today. Although we have a lot of mutual friends, this is the first time that we had met. Chris is much more than just a professional fighter. He's an absolute savage in anything that he tackles in life. It was a great conversation. Enjoy the episode. Jeremy, you happy? Okay, cool. Chris, we're finally doing this, man. A little bit of back and forth, some travel in there, and yeah.
It's my fault.
No,
I bailed.
No, it's not. I pushed you off a weekend, right? Like you were supposed to come in and...
I don't think you did. I think I bailed a few times.
Okay.
I'm a hard guy to lock down, man. I got too many jobs right now.
Yeah. No, I'm just happy to have you, dude. Like, no hard feelings at all on that front. So
well, good. I appreciate it. I was excited to come to Evergreen, too. I haven't been up here in a minute. What's this restaurant right here on the corner? Or either which, it doesn't matter if you're watching. Is it Big Bear, Little Bear?
Little Bear. It's the spot.
Going back to high school, I went to Bear Creek. And so over Thanksgiving break, our wrestling team used to have to run from Morrison to Evergreen. And so that's where we would end. So I haven't been up to, I've been up to Evergreen.
So you guys would
then.
run up the Bear Creek Canyon?
Yeah. So
Really?
we would get dropped off at the, what's the Mexican restaurant in Morrison?
God damn it. Awesome margaritas there.
Yeah.
Morrison Inn, right?
It is the Morrison Inn.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right. Okay.
Yeah.
So we would start there and run up the canyon. And then that's where we finished. And then like the coach would buy everybody breakfast, but the whole team had to run. And I have nightmares about that. That's like
This
PTSD.
was a wrestling team, or is that what she said?
Yeah.
Damn, that's crazy. That's so. As a kid, I grew up right here, and we used to lie to my parents. If you're listening, I'm sorry. I never meant to lie to you, but I'd be like, "Yo, I'm going to Josh's house, and I'm gonna spend the night," and he'd be like, "Yo, I'm going to Bobby's. I'm gonna spend the night." And we would ride BMX bikes down Bear Creek Canyon to go catch like the Grateful Dead or something at Red Rocks.
Oh, really? Okay.
So going down was no problem, but coming home was a bitch. So we would like hitchhike.
Yeah. How old were you? Or how old are you now?
I must have been like 10. So I'm just turned 43 this month.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm 36.
Or last month, I guess.
I remember going to Red Rocks and same kind of thing.
Yeah.
My friends and I would go up there. We didn't have tickets, but the Grateful Dead would be playing. And we would just sit up on the rocks and like listen to it. But I remember the first time going and like how many people were just like openly selling drugs and like as you're walking through.
Dude, we saw cops in there buying drugs.
Yeah, I didn't even know what they were talking about. People were just like, "Hey, do you want whatever?" And I'm like, "Nah, I'm good." You know, I was an athlete and everything in high school, but we went for the music and even just the terms people were saying. It smelled so bad and
oh, like, the patchouli and
the deadheads
teepees and yeah, it was a different scene back then. Like back when Jerry was still like the band, and we were honestly going to check out naked hippie chicks, which is not
not
awesome
what you think.
thing to check out.
I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, but as a 10-year-old or 11-year-old kid, we thought it was awesome, and then we actually I still don't even really like the Grateful Dead music. Like it's okay,
me either.
Like, but it's not what I'm never gonna put it on just when I'm like chilling or whatever. Like I would have to be like highly intoxicated, maybe on some psilocybin or something to even experience Grateful Dead, right?
It was the same for us. It was just the atmosphere. We were like, oh, I mean, because it was such a big deal, you know, they like all the deadheads were like camping in Morrison and everything and like just posting up in people's yards. And so we were like, let's go see what this is about.
Yeah, they would take over the town, right?
Yeah, like they couldn't, I think South Park even did an episode on it. They couldn't get rid of them. I remember having a friend in high school who lived in Morrison and like had pictures of people camping in his front yard. Like they didn't even ask. They just like, here's where we're staying.
Well, the Dead would take over Red Rocks for like a week too. So it'd be like 4 or 5 days straight.
Yeah.
And me and my buddies got hip to it and we were like, we're going to make some money. So we would go to the grocery store and either buy or steal a bunch of candy, like lollipops and just all kinds of stuff. Like, and then throw it in our backpacks, go down there, and they'd buy it, you know. And
they buy or barter, right?
Yeah. Luckily, we never got beat up or killed or kidnapped hitchhiking home or whatever. But where I was going with that is a long-ass trek up fucking Bear Creek Canyon, and it's all uphill, dude.
I think it's 11 or 13 miles. Maybe it's not Bear Creek Canyon. Is that the canyon? So from Morrison, you know, when you keep going up.
If you come right out of Main Street here in Evergreen and go straight to Red Rocks, and follow the river that runs
Yeah.
through town.
Okay, that is
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
that's Bear Creek Canyon.
yeah. It's just a real small road up, and
Yeah.
that was the prize at the top. That was the only thing you got. It wasn't money. It wasn't anything else. It was just like free breakfast and to do it to be part of the team. So,
Was it at the Little Bear, the breakfast?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
So that was
awesome.
the end goal, and they would time you. You know, and I remember the first time I did it, this was horrible. I didn't show up prepared at all. I showed up in shorts and a T-shirt and a beanie, and it was snowing, like just lightly snowing. Everybody else is like bundled up, and I'm like, oh, I'm going to be running. I'm going to be hot. So I'm running and everything. Well, my shirt froze, but I couldn't feel it until the top. Get to the top, my shirt was frozen. I go to pull my shirt off. It doesn't really come off. It's stuck, and I'm bleeding. Like my nipples are bleeding, everything. But it was so numb, I couldn't feel it. But once you start thawing out, yeah, I had blood all over my chest, stomach, everything.
Just from
Talk
like
about
road
horrible
rash,
pains.
dude.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, that's brutal.
I don't miss that. I wouldn't do that anymore. But it was a good like rite of passage back then.
Yeah.
You know, growing up around here.
Yeah. So you've been in Colorado for a minute then, yeah? Since through high school and like middle school too, or?
Yeah. So I moved here in 97, I think. 96, 97 from California, like Northern California in the Bay Area. And yeah, middle school, high school here, and pretty much a local, but I don't know. Are you from here?
You local, yeah, but like the people that hold like the native badge and the bumper stickers and stuff, they're a little too hardcore for me. Like, even though I grew up here, like I went out and experienced the world and like some other cultures and stuff. So I left here for probably close to 20 years, you know, and then I've come back to raise my kids here, which is super cool. But yeah, there's some people that are hardcore and like all these fuckers from California moving in and like,
It's
dude,
a lot of them.
everybody in my neighborhood is from out of state.
Really?
And especially since the pandemic, it's even tripled. Like I think there's one person in the little subdivision that I live in that's like an Colorado native family and an Evergreen.
Yeah,
family.
I've gotten so used to it because maybe it's changed now because my girlfriend, even when I'm talking to people, I'm like, well, I'm not a native and this and that. And then I go through the story. She's like, why don't you just say like you're a native? And I'm like, I used to get corrected all the time through high school, into college, everything. People are like, well, no, you weren't born here. You're not a native. And they would like, yeah, like you're saying, they would be like offended by it.
Right.
So then I just got used to being like, no, I'm not. You gotta be
but
honest.
But it's like,
again.
are you really a native, dude? You know, like,
yeah.
Do you come from native blood, like Native American blood?
That's
like,
what I want to say to them.
It's so weird to me, dude. Like, I don't understand it, but
but they hold it tight.
Yeah, they do.
The last ones here definitely hold that tight.
I mean, not that I'm not proud of it. Like, I am super proud. Like, my family goes like 12 generations deep here. But at some point,
really,
some of them got on a boat and came over here to like homestead or whatever, you know? So like technically they're not native, you know? Like,
yeah. At some point, nobody's a native here, right? We're all English or whatever.
Yeah. We've all been bred down to mutts, but yeah, no, I definitely have a connection with here and just all that, you know, growing up here. And I think that's one reason why I started this podcast was to kind of help raise some awareness just about the influx of people that we've seen in the state and the way public land's getting used and all that sort of stuff. And then it's kind of involved into something that's more my own greed, like having bad motherfuckers like you in to talk to and stuff like that. So, but we still kind of bounce around like those premises. I mean, have you noticed a huge change since you've been here? I'm sure like 97s, that's, what is that, 25 years or something?
Yeah. I mean, most of my life. That's why it's weird to not say that I'm from here. If you're listening to this and you don't live here, this place sucks, so don't come here.
That's what I always tell people when I'm sitting at a bar or something. They're like, they see my ID or whatever. If I get carded, they're like, "Oh, Colorado, isn't it? It's awesome there." I was like, "No, it sucks. It's cold all the fucking time.
Cold. It's ugly. It's flat.
We have school shootings. It's a horrible place to live."
I think it was the Vikings, right? They had it right because like back in the day, they called Greenland, and really that was they like reversed Greenland, Iceland.
Oh, really?
Have you ever heard
Didn't
that?
know that. No.
So Iceland is like a lot more like lush and everything, and Greenland is like frozen.
I've been to both. So,
have you?
Yeah.
Maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like I remember hearing that.
The truth. Yeah.
Yeah, they like reversed the name, so it was like you wouldn't go.
Very clever, those Vikings.
Yeah, we'll just call this place L.A. You don't want to come here.
It might as well be now, man. Like
Yeah.
I lived in Hermosa Beach for about 15 years, and Redondo, that whole little South Bay area, and
Used to be
it's
amazing.
oh, dude, it was so amazing when I first moved in there, and I would have died to growing up there, you know, like during the real punk rock era, like when the church was going on and like Black
God.
Flag and all those bands were playing at that church or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's probably a good thing I didn't, because I'd probably be dead or in jail.
A dumpster somewhere.
Yeah. But yeah, I moved into Hermosa Beach, and that was amazing. But it's just weird. To me, it feels like California politics. Like Colorado's a great spot, but it's just like I feel like we're going down that road, and not even to dive into politics. I could honestly kind of give a fuck about it, but
Yeah.
like I feel like Colorado's slowly turning into like kind of that more taxes, more government control, more, you know, where it used to be kind of the Wild West a little bit when we were growing up even, you
That's
know?
what I used to tell everybody. I'm like, Colorado's the best. We have guns, we have weed. Like, we're like literally down the middle, it felt like.
Yeah.
You know, and it was like best of both worlds. Yeah, I'm the same as you. I could go on politics and stuff all day, but that's how I used to describe it. Guns and weed, because those were like two polar opposite things. And I was like, and nobody gives a shit. You just do whatever you want to do. They mind their own business. The people are nice. They're friendly. You know, you go to LA, New York, those big cities, and like you're walking and somebody has to move and they'll be like, fuck off, you know? Like,
Right.
here, they're like, oh, excuse me. People open doors for you here, or used to.
Yeah, like you literally have to run into somebody or like being trapped in the same space as somebody to have a conversation in LA, even in the beach towns or whatever, you know? It's like,
Yeah.
there's so many fucking people you just kind of keep to yourself. It's like, God, I don't want to talk to everybody I pass on the sidewalk, because that's like 150 people in a mile, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
And I used to go out there a bunch, and that was the thing, is like, everybody's first question is like, what do you do? You know, basically like, how much money do you make? And that's how they would scale what kind of person you are. It was so
it's
like
sitting in
pretentious.
first class. It's always that. So what do you do? You know, like,
Yeah.
I always lie to him. I always tell him like, I don't know, some
I robbed
bullshit.
the bank.
Yeah, hot air race team. You know.
Yeah, I rob people, you know. That'll stop the conversation real
exactly.
quick.
Yeah, I always ask if somebody asks me like, "Hey, did you go to college?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got a degree." They're like, "Oh, cool. And what? Anger management." They're like, "So you teach anger management?" I was like, "No, I just graduated."
Yeah. Canyon City University.
Yeah. No, it's funny, the status, and I'm starting to see that here, you know, like one reason why I left LA to raise my kids here is like kind of that living in Hermosa Beach. You have Manhattan right there, you have Redondo, Palos Verdes, like it's just money's just pouring out of that place, and Hermosa's kind of considered like the poorer section, I guess, of that beach in Redondo, which is totally insane. And that's where we lived. And then, you know, my wife taught dance ballet there, like, and these parents are showing up. They're all doctors and lawyers, or rock stars even. Like, my wife used to teach the Lindbergh girls, Jim Lindbergh from Pennywise. And so it was a cool little community of that, but it was very much, even at that young age, it was like keeping up with the Joneses, you know? It was like, it was all about, they got the latest iPhone or this or that. And I was just like, man.
And you don't want your kids to be behind, but you're also like, this doesn't matter.
Plus, I loved, like, why I loved living there was the debauchery, dude. Like,
Yeah.
I loved parking my truck on the weekends and having nothing but my beach cruiser to cruise around from bar to grocery store to passing girls in bikinis to, you know, all kinds of different stuff happening right there on the Strand. And it's like, that can be intoxicating, man. Like, I wouldn't, if I had gone to high school there, I wouldn't have gone to school. I would have been surfing every day and hanging out on the beach, drinking 40s and going to Mickey's Deli for a cheese sandwich. And, like, you know,
you'd still be doing the same thing. I know. I would have killed to live there back in the day. And then now as an adult, I'm like, there's no chance.
No.
Like, California's beautiful, but I would not live there.
Yeah. And it was a blessing in disguise too. Like, coming back here, like, I feel so good that I'm here, and I forgot how awesome it is. And like, being away for so long and traveling the world made me really appreciate this place. Like, because growing up here, I was kind of like, fuck this place, man. I'm never going to make it. I'm never going to, you know.
Nobody knows about
it's
this
the same
place.
old, same old. I'm so sick of, like, you know, going ice skating at the lake or whatever, you know. It's like.
Yeah. Did you grow up here in Evergreen?
Yeah.
Or sorry, I don't want to call out where the podcast studio is.
No, it's all good. We still keep it kind of incognito. You'd have to really hunt to like find it. You'd have to tail me in or something. So
yeah,
we don't have any signs up, but we've dropped it, and the locals give me some shit about it. So I'm sorry if, but it's like, dude, I don't have this huge audience, you know, like I'm not Rogan or somebody, you know, so it's like
nobody is.
Yeah.
We all want to be, right?
Yeah. No, definitely an influence, dude. Mentor for sure. Yeah.
I love this town too. I mean, it's just like a little stretch, but it's beautiful, you know? Like I passed on the way up here, like frozen lake, people are running, walking around. Colorado, like one thing that I really love is it's like an active, fit state. Yeah. And there's stuff like, do I always do it? No, I'm busy, but I always talk about doing it or wanting to do it. You know, I always say like every weekend I want to go to the mountains and do this and that. And I don't do it as often, obviously, but the option is there, which feels good inside at least.
Yeah, and I think one thing that's kind of a misconception, like I've lived in some other states, the amount of public land that we have here is just, it's fucking amazing, dude. It's like 40% of the state. And then like some of the wilderness areas that are out here, I know you hunt a little bit, don't you? Or?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've gotten out of it a little bit, not on purpose. It's just
life.
Time and life and everything, but I want to get back in. That's my goal, is like the next few years, get all my gear and everything back, get back into it, because I love checking out. Like, it feels awkward at first, you know, you get wherever you're going in backcountry and stuff, and there's no service, but like disconnecting from social media, your phone, like nobody could call you if they wanted. And then after like a day, it's amazing. And one of my favorite things to do was like to hike to the top of peaks hunting just by myself, and I'd sit there all day. And like you can figure out so many things in life just sitting there quiet and like enjoying the pretty scenery and just.
Yeah, you don't even have to be on animals. Like that's one thing that I got to kind of remember when I go out there, because I'm so bloodthirsty, I guess.
Yeah.
At first, right? It's like you've been waiting all year, you've been training all year for it. Like that's what I revolve all of my weightlifting around. Any of my cardio it's solely for bow hunting. That's like the only reason, right? And I'm not trying to be a professional hunter. I'm just trying to be successful. And like, it's fucking hard, dude. Like I'm not Cameron Haynes. I'm not, you know, John Dudley or some of these amazing bow hunters that are out there, Donnie Vincent or something like that. But it's just, I don't know. I live for that moment. So then like the first couple of days I go fucking a little too hard, you know? And then I got to remind myself like, dude, I'm here for 8 days.
Yeah. Your body's
I can sit here and just enjoy the sunrise or sunset or like those moments like that, I think are actually better than the actual hunt. Like taking an animal to me is like experiencing some of those, you know, things, or like seeing a mountain lion, which is super rare, you know, like I've spent a ton of time in the backcountry, growing up in the backcountry, grew up bow hunting.
Oh,
and
really?
I've only seen 2 lions. I saw one last year, came into my cow call.
Yeah,
as I was heading up a trail, and that was
I've seen a couple
special
moment.
moment.
Make your heart race a little, and you're like, oh shit! Like,
well, it happened so fast. I didn't even like. I was headed up a game trail, and I was cow calling and going real slow and being super quiet, and I just saw something out of my peripheral, and all I remember seeing was just a long ass tail,
you know,
and
bigger than you think.
And I was like, fuck.
Yeah, it is cool. Like that was always my thing. Like I said, I kind of took a break from hunting. I still hunt birds and stuff, but you know, big game hunting takes a lot more planning, and I went through divorce and stuff, and a lot of my gear was maybe left behind, and then resetting. And I used to hunt with ex-in-laws and everything, so finding like a new group to go with, those are kind of like the things I'm figuring out now, where I'm gonna go, who, and then getting the stuff back. But before that, I never cared about getting anything. I mean, obviously that was the goal, but just like getting out there. And like you said, like I would sit in meadows and stuff on top of peaks, and after all the work you put in walking up there and then sitting there, and you would just see like wildlife and stuff coming through. You're just silent, and then your brain starts turning, and I feel like you figure out a lot more things in life too.
Oh, a ton, especially if you're by yourself. Like, because, correct me if I'm wrong, because I don't want to speak for you, but like somebody that's been in your position for, you've been in the fight game for what? Probably at least 20 years, right?
It's going to make me sound old. Yeah, like 17 years.
Yeah, dude. And I would imagine, myself included, we hit you up for the podcast, everybody wants a piece of your time, I would imagine, right?
I mean, I'm not like a superstar or anything. You know,
well,
it's like,
I don't know, dude.
I take on too many things.
Yeah.
That's my problem. I like money, so I don't say no. And I'm like, end up with all these jobs or like side hustles and this and that. And, but yeah, I think I know where you're going. Like that stillness where you're just like,
yeah, a moment where nobody can contact you, right? Unless you have like a satellite device or something like that. But like, I'm very selective on who I give that to. It's like my wife only, and it's like somebody better be dying. One of the kids better be dying.
Yeah, that'll be like the thing you're hunting like a big bull, and that thing rings, and you're like, I'm gonna kill you.
Yeah. Nah, I guess it's good for like checking in and stuff, and I try not, because those things you can start to rely on them, you know. And if that thing dies, then what are you gonna do, you know? But
yeah, like GPS and stuff, that is important, especially if you're gonna get way back there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been lost before. It's not fun.
It's not fun.
Yeah, and I didn't have any of that.
No, I always still try to navigate from like a map or something, but I do have that in case of I need to contact somebody or
That's
something.
smart, especially because you got kids too.
Yeah.
You know, you can't fully check out when you have kids. Like,
because if we go back country with the kids, that's the main reason I bought it, is it has that SOS device, or I could maybe contact
so you take them
somebody.
with you.
Yeah, not hunting just yet. They're still pretty young.
How old are they?
So I have a 5-year-old, which I appreciate you moving the time today because she just won her first dance competition this morning.
Nice. She's probably pumped.
Oh, she was so pumped, dude. She's a little savage. I think she might be a fighter someday.
Dancing's a good start.
Footwork, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I have my 10-year-old son that he's just dying to hunt elk right now, but it's still
a lot of work.
Yeah, it's a lot, and I don't get a whole lot of time, so like that's kind of my thing, you know. So like when he's old enough to like, I guess really get out there and do it, then I'll take him. But I was like, okay, first we're gonna go on a turkey hunt because that's kind of like hunting elk and
bird hunting.
Yeah,
is a good warm up.
Yep.
Yeah,
and he hasn't physically taken an animal yet, not even a small game animal. So like there's a little bit of like emotional roller coaster that happens with that too. So it's like I want him to learn that. And then my oldest daughter, she's on her own fucking program, dude. Like she'll never go with me, but she loves what I do. She's a little savage herself, but she's training to be a pro athlete herself, you know. So
what does she do?
She does ballet.
Oh, okay. Is that or not the 5-year-old though,
right? Both my daughters do ballet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then my son, shout out to Eric Tilley. We were talking about him before the podcast too. Is working. He wants to play football,
dude.
So he's just
all
in on it.
Like props to you for taking him to Landau's, because I mean that's world-class facility, and
incredible.
Even like all the biggest pro athletes in Colorado train there, and then the kids that are there, like the structure that they have and like footwork and everything, no matter what your sport. I mean, like Christian McCaffrey came out of there, Missy Franklin, like some superstar athletes. I think Christian was going there when he was like 11, started training with Lauren. Yeah. And like they don't have them, they're smart, you know. They're not having them throw around weight and everything.
They make it fun, and that's what I love about Eric. And just we've had Eric on the podcast a couple times. I don't know if you've caught that.
Yeah,
he's name dropped you a couple times. That's actually, you've been on my short list for a long time. But Eric reminded me, he's like, dude, you should have Chris Camozzi on. I was like,
I love
hell
that guy.
Yeah. So that's why I reached out to you. So thanks, Eric, if you're listening to this. But yeah, no, I didn't really, I knew about Lauren Landau because I'm a huge Denver Broncos fan and grew up Denver Broncos fan and all that stuff. And then I knew through other guests that we've had on the podcast and following, I'm a big UFC fan or MMA fan in general, you know, whether it's Bellator or Glory or any of those organizations, pretty badass. And I enjoy watching that. So the amount of fighters that train here in Denver and that are in the Rocky Mountain region is fucking insane, and they all pretty much go to Landau.
That's what I was gonna say. Almost, there's not very many I can name that don't. Like if they're the who's who of like the top. Yeah,
and I always see like the videos of you guys training and that sort of stuff, and I remember hearing Lauren Landau like a long time ago, like 10 years ago in the fight game and that sort of thing, and so he's been around for a long time. And I thought it was like an exclusive club, dude. I thought it was like,
most people do.
Yeah. And so when we had Eric in, I was kind of telling him, like, yeah, this is the first year that my son played tackle football. And he's like, well, fucking bring him down. Let's get some work in. And it's been awesome, man. Like, we've taken him down there, and because I was trying to coach him myself, and nothing against his peewee coaches or anything. They're awesome, but they're not teaching like these hardcore pro fundamentals, right? They have 30 kids on the team they're just trying to herd cats, honestly, man, and get plays off. And
and most of the coaches, sorry to interrupt you, like, because I played growing up and everything too. Like, most of those coaches are just like hobbyists, or they played like high school football and stuff too. Like, I first started learning how to lift weights in middle school, and looking at that, like, it was just a teacher teaching.
Oh,
gym
it's
class.
so different, right?
The structure that they have, the form, like, they're so particular on form, like injury prevention. Even just the other day, I mean, like, I'm a professional athlete. We talked about for 17 years now. MMA might be on the low spectrum of professional athletes.
No,
but,
dude, I think you guys should be in the top tier, honestly, man. Like,
yeah, as far as like athletic performance,
conditioning,
and,
yeah. Fuck, kidding me?
But just the other day, like, we were running sprints, like shuttle runs, and then they were showing me, like, there's a whole form to cutting and like turning and this and that and like how to do it. And they're teaching these kids that are coming up how to do that, so that they're just like so efficient. And you're not going to learn that at your school, your peewee coach, unless your coach like came from the NFL.
They don't have the time, dude. They get an hour with these kids, and the parents are already chomping at the bit to like pull them, like, to go do something else or go home and have dinner, like.
And they're volunteering, so no fault of theirs.
No, not at all. And I think even if they did have those skills or whatever, that they couldn't implement it in the amount of time. Like, so for example, like, and I'm one of those coaches, like, I only played high school ball, right? Like, I never played any sort of sport at a professional level. Like, so I'm a nobody when it comes to the athletic realm of like, yeah, I know how to lift some weights and I've studied some people, but I've never done it as a profession, dude. I was a roadie, like, if you want to know how to build a stage or back a truck into a fucking place or drink a bottle of Jack Daniels, yeah, dude, I'm your guy. But when it comes to actual, like, professional performance and actual coaching, and I never even really got that in high school. Like, we had
I didn't either.
Some fundamentals. We would go to the weight room, but it was just like, it was about the time you put in the weight room. There was nobody in there teaching us like form or like, it was all about how much you could bench, how much you could squat, how much you could deadlift, and what the record board said, and
just
what position you played, and all that sort of thing. And so when I started teaching my kid, when he came to me, he's like, yo, I want to play football. And I was like, oh shit. Cause it was something I wasn't going to push on him. I was like, okay. So we got him suited up, and it was the middle of summer, and I was like, okay, now catch the football and shoulder pads and a helmet. And then I was doing like Oklahoma with him, like give him a little.
You're on Amazon ordering him creatine and
Yeah.
stuff. You're like, all right, well,
we're gonna do
your
it, we're gonna
dad's
do it
retirement
right.
plan.
So I was making him run sprints and do some cutting stuff, but to coach him to run faster, it was just always like, run harder.
Just try harder.
Run harder, And
yeah.
he was like the third fastest kid on the team, which, he felt some sort of status with. But, having Eric in here and understanding those fundamentals and having pro athletes sit across from me like you, and like, it's like, God, I want to give my kid every opportunity he can. So
that's awesome.
So it was awesome. I hit Eric up, and he's like, absolutely bring him down. And I hate asking for anything, dude. Like, I'm not that guy.
Yeah.
But Eric has been like so just generous and open armed. Like, yeah, come in, has made time for Tyler. And it's cool when we've gone down there because he's the only 10-year-old kid that's typically in there.
Yeah.
And it's either Denver Bronco wide receivers working with Lauren, or guys getting ready to go to the Combine. There'll be like 30 college kids there. And then there's Tyler, who's 10 years old, working on fundamentals. And the first like 6 times that we've been there, so we've done probably maybe 5 or 6 hours. We just recently started going. I mean, we've worked on nothing but just starting on the line and body position and posture, and
there's so
how
much
weight is on your lead leg, and where your arms should be, and then some cutting, and that's about it. And it's like, that's how much goes into it. Yeah. And I've learned a ton. Yeah, I feel like I've knocked 2 seconds off my 40 just
I know,
watching.
Same for me. Like, I watch, because they train every athlete different too. And I'm there when a lot of the Combine guys are there and stuff. And I'm like, why don't I do that? Why are they're doing like power cleans and stuff? I never do power cleans. And I remember, I haven't asked since because I got the exact answer I needed. This is years ago. Lauren used to be my coach, and then it was Lauren and Eric. And then Lauren got his job with the Broncos. So then just Eric. I don't mean just Eric if you're listening to this, Eric. But I remember asking Lauren one time, I'm like, hey, every time I'm here, I see the NFL guys doing power cleans and stuff, and they're like throwing weight. I'm like, why don't I do power cleans? And he's like, because you don't know how to power clean, and you don't know how to do it right. And he's like, you're going to hurt yourself. And I'm like, I did it in high school. And he's like, it's exactly what I'm talking about.
Right.
And then he just was like, that's not sport specific for you. Like power cleans for like those linemen and stuff is all like pop and
it's all about that.
Quick
right?
second. And he's like, that doesn't equate to punching anything that you do. There's really no need for you to do power cleans. So they train. It's really cool because they put so much time and effort into programming. And it's not just like, okay, there's a ton of gyms that'll just have everybody do the same thing. Like CrossFit, you go to a CrossFit gym,
same
everyone
thing,
does
right?
the same workout, whether you're 70 or you're like the new 18-year-old. And there's no sport specific or anything. Everything there is like completely structured around you individually, even as a group.
And like the science behind it, right? Like that Proteus machine or whatever that they
Yeah.
have. Like I always see you posting about it, and you and I have actually gone back and forth on that online or on Instagram or something.
Yeah.
But that thing is crazy, dude. Like it's like this scientific machine that
And it measures everything.
weight, speed, all kinds of stuff, right?
Yeah, and it keeps a profile for you. So now when I use it, Eric like types in my name and stuff, and it pulls up my numbers from the last time over the last like weeks, months. It'll keep an entire profile, and I'm competitive. So when I see that, and I'm like, all right, I got to beat that number, and then I get mad when I don't,
Right.
because I feel like each time should be better.
Jeremy, pull this up on Chris's Instagram. If you go to Chris Camozzi Instagram, right there. Yeah.
Let's
So
see.
there's probably some on there.
I think keep going down. Let's see. Maybe.
Maybe it was only on
Might have been
my
a story
post or something, but
If you Google Proteus, don't ask me how to spell it. I think it's Proteus. Proteus Motion.
we actually talked about this on Eric's podcast, but this
I think it's
machine's
EUS.
crazy. It's got all these different handles and it looks like a robot or something, right?
Yeah, so the crazy thing about it, have you used it yet? Did you get to try it?
Yeah, so Eric let me try it when I was down there, and he's had Tyler use it a little bit. Tyler's a little small for it, I think. If they had a kid's version, maybe, but you could still do stuff on it.
So what's crazy is, shout out to Proteus. They don't sponsor me or anything, but I love using their machine. What you don't realize watching this, right? So when he goes upwards, obviously you assume there's weight on it. So you say it's 20 pounds. Well, it's 20 pounds to push up, but 20 pounds to pull down. So full range of motion. If you push it in, it's 20 pounds.
Yeah.
Pull it out. So it's complete resistance every which way you use it. So it's different. Like when you watch this, it just looks like she's lifting it up and then it drops down.
But it's resistance the whole time.
She has to push it down. It's still 20 pounds
Yeah.
or whatever you set it at.
No, that thing's pretty amazing. I wish I could afford to have one here in studio or something, but
Right? The thing
I'm
is,
just
that
a
thing is
schlub. I don't need that
gigantic.
thing.
It'd be smacking walls around here.
No, it is big.
Your neighbors would love you.
Yeah. They already do love us. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a cool machine.
So
No.
how long have you been going to Landau then? For a minute before Lauren was with the Broncos? I mean,
Yeah, so I
it's
was.
been a minute.
God, it's probably been 10 years or more.
So they were in a different building when
Yeah,
you first started with them. Yeah.
it was Stedman Hawkins.
Okay.
So it was Landau Performance in Stedman Hawkins. They were upstairs of not a shopping center, like a business center, a lot smaller. And then they got a different facility just down the street from where they are now, which was like 5 times as big. And then this one's like 10 times bigger.
It's so awesome in there. Just to go in there and look at the jerseys and everybody that's worked out there and just like that lore and like the leaderboard with the 20-mile-an-hour speed limit sign and like,
Yeah.
and you go in there and there's basically, you have this Proteus machine is like the most state-of-the-art thing there. Everything else there is like, might as well be
It's just structure and
caveman
programming.
area, right? There's like some pull-up racks. a few of those like curved treadmills. I forget what they call the assault treadmills or whatever. And
They're
but there's not like what you would think in there, right? Like it's just gridiron work, like some hurdles, jump boxes, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, it's just structure programming. It's funny you say that about the jerseys. Sorry, if you guys are listening, I've got like a little cold here. That's why my voice sounds so. I'm becoming a man. You talk about the jerseys, so I used to see all those, and I would come in every day and be like, "Oh man, cool!" Like see different ones. So I gave Lauren one of my UFC jerseys and gloves and everything, and he got it framed. Nice. And when he got it framed, it was in the office, like in his office.
It's in the bathroom.
Which could be cool. Yeah, yeah, kind of. I think it was like the break room.
Okay.
So I used to come in and fuck with them. Sorry. I would come in and I would move other jerseys and slowly move mine to like the premier spot. And now they have it out in the middle because like they knew that I wasn't going to give up on it. Right. I just kept moving. I think whose jersey did I move one time? It was like Brady Quinn. And I was like, I've played as many NFL downs as that guy. Like, put my jersey out here. I'm fighting the UFC.
TiVo, you're out.
Yeah. And yeah, so I kept moving it out there. And now it's out there. It's like at the end of the turf. But
okay. I'll have to look for it the next time we're down there.
Lauren would come in and be like, did you move something? I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. That's awesome. So you've been going there for a minute. You started your career at the amateur level of fighting, or what kind of got you into fighting, man? Because I've been watching you for a minute. Like I think the first time I was a big fan of The Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah. Okay.
Like the TV series. And this is back like Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz days. And I didn't realize, that I had watched you on it just because I only recognized so many faces like going through there or whatever. But like, I was like, oh shit. When I was looking it up, I was like, I did watch Chris there. And I do remember him like breaking his jaw and like that
I used to
moment.
buzz my head. I had no beard. Yeah. I couldn't grow a beard until I was like 26. So, and now it's going gray. Yeah. So I only got a short window.
Sucks getting old, man.
Yeah.
But,
so I grew up playing like every sport you could think of, from soccer, baseball, football, swimming, everything. And when I got to high school, so I went to Denver schools for middle school, and then I switched to Bear Creek, which is Lakewood, which, you know, once you get out of Denver schools, it's a little bit better and this and that.
Bear Creek's awesome. I had a bunch of friends that went there, so we'll have to talk after this. I'm sure we know some similar people or same people.
Definitely. So once I got there, so I didn't know a lot of people. I didn't go to middle school with these people, anything, switched schools, literally knew nobody pretty much when I went there. Played football, so I went through like the summer camps and stuff. And then I can't remember, somebody was talking about wrestling, or maybe the coach came in and was like going around classes, and I was like, oh, I'll try that. That sounds cool. Excuse me. And so I went out for wrestling, not knowing anything about wrestling. I think we did it for like a week in middle school, and I actually like ended up winning the thing in middle school, doing pretty good, but didn't know anything. We didn't really learn anything. And so I went out for wrestling, and I remember the first practice. I had never sweat like that before in my life. Like, I didn't know that that's what working out was. I'd never had, even playing football, you know, like sweat runs down, this and that. You don't pay attention. With no gear on, I was like pouring like on the ground. It was just dripping off me, but it felt great. And I was like, this is awesome. Like, I am a high energy person too, like ADD. So all that running around and wrestling and then run and wrestle and drill was great for me. And I just got hooked. So I wrestled freshman year to senior year. I did okay. I never had what it takes to go to college for sure. And I would wrestle. This kind of goes into fighting too. Depending on where our team was, I was 189, I think. I don't know if the weights are the same anymore.
I don't know. I was always at heavyweight.
Yeah. So
it was like you never knew if you were getting somebody that was like jacked or Jabba the Hutt, dude. Like it sucked.
So one of my best friends, his name is Travis Pitt, was my same weight. So I basically never beat him, would never be on the varsity team. And I was like, this sucks. And because he had wrestled since he was like 4. He was one of those people, he went to like national tournaments all over the place, everything. He was like a stud. Our whole team was stacked. So I would go to different weights that would let me be like on the varsity team. So I wrestled heavyweight for our varsity team.
Nice.
And I weighed like 190 pounds, if that. I used to drink water. Everybody else was cutting weight. And same thing, yeah. Some of those guys would be like 260 and either jacked or, like you said, like Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah.
But I would fill in, like if somebody got sick, I would go down the weight. And so I was on the varsity team. And I just liked doing it. And I liked the competition. And no matter how big they were, I was like, put me in, I'll do it. And,
had you done any martial arts or anything before that? Like,
no,
it was just high school wrestling.
Okay, I did karate as a kid.
Okay.
And then I quit because like all I wanted to do was spar. And my sister kept getting all these belts for learning like the katas and stuff. And I like refused to do it like in the air. I was like, I just want to go and spar. So when everybody was doing it in the gym, just facing the mirrors, I would just kind of like half-ass it. But then when we got to put like the pads and stuff on, I was like all about doing it. She kept getting belts. I didn't. Because I never memorized any of the stuff. I just wanted to fight people.
Well, it sounds like you were at a real karate gym, because now I think they just give them away every 3 months or something. Like, here you go, kid.
Even going back to that, I remember I had this guy, this is in California, and he used to like, when I hear this now, I'm like, God, this might have been like a horrible gym or like the douchiest thing ever. At the end of like classes, he would line everybody up, and you got one chance to like punch him in the stomach. Yeah, it sounds so cringy now, like as an adult and like in martial arts. And he's like, if you knock me down, I'll give you a black belt. And I remember every time I was like, this is my time. Like, I'm going to drop him. And then, he wouldn't even move. I'm like 7. And
bow to your sensei.
Yeah. Yeah. Looking back, I wish I knew the name of it. I'm like, I wonder how horrible this gym was my parents were taking me to. But anyways, fast forward, I played wrestling, and then I played rugby in high school, which I loved. I got out of football. I ended up fracturing my femur playing football as a freshman, and then just kind of steered away from it. I wasn't super fond of the coaches and stuff, and it was just like not for me. So I played rugby, and I loved that. It was such a fun sport. Just like the aggressiveness too. I mean, you could fight on the rugby field, and you don't even get kicked out. So you go to the sin bin.
There's no pads. You might as well be in a fight in one of those scrums or something. Like, I've only played a couple times, and I was always getting pulled by guys that were like playing in these little leagues or whatever. They're like, come play with us, because I was always been a big dude.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I went a couple times. I was like, damn, this is fucking brutal.
Yeah, I mean, and our team in high school was like amazing. We killed it. We were combined with Wheat Ridge, and we just dominated everybody. But we were known as like the misfits of rugby. I mean, we'd have fist fights on the field and stuff. And the best part about it was like, you get in a fight and you're just swinging, and they're like, all right, you're in the penalty box, sin bin, 3 minutes. You're like, all right,
cool.
And then you get to come back and play. And I was like, this sport's amazing. My team was even like, I'm getting way off track here, but we were winning an insane amount one time. We were that good, and I want to say it was about like 60 points. And then 2 of my teammates got in a fist fight against each other on the field. And my coach is like, what is going on? He's like, you guys are destroying them, and you're fighting each other. And we just had like, our team, if you saw it, looked like they were from like prison. Right. It was just like hooligans. Nobody looked the same. We had like metalheads. We had like big jocks, everything. But going through high school, I always liked contact sports. I went off to college. I played rugby in college for 1 semester. It wasn't a great team. It was at Fort Lewis in Durango. Oh, okay. It was a club team, but it was like a party and play. We'd go to like ASU.
That's a party school for sure, yeah.
Yeah, it's a little different, but we'd go to like ASU, and I was like, this is awesome. We played rugby, and then we'd just party all weekend. Once the season ended, I was like, this college is not for me. To be honest, I didn't even know what a liberal arts college was, and I wish my mom might have known too. I went to a liberal arts college, and I was like thinking I would get to take the classes I wanted. And they're like, no, you have to do like math, English, all this. It sounds stupid, but I found out while I'm there that's what liberal arts meant.
Okay.
So I dropped out right after. Right after the season, and I was like, this is it. I'm going back home. So I get home to Denver. I'm working a job I hate, like working at warehouses and stuff. And a buddy of mine that I wrestled with called me, and he was like, hey, I started doing jiu-jitsu and this and that. I'm like, what's that? And he's like, it's like wrestling, but like you get to submit people and stuff. And you should come with me. So it was in Lakewood, and it was called GUM Mixed Martial Arts, like GUMM. And this is like a pretty pivotal time. That's why I'm putting so much time on it is
take your time, dude. We're in no rush. So
the gym that I walked into happened to be like a great gym. It was a hole in the wall. Like it was maybe 2,000 square feet, but the owner was a black belt in jiu-jitsu and fought in like UFC in the 20s.
So this was early 2000s then? Or?
Yeah, this is like 2006.
Which is kind of unheard of because it was hard to find a school.
Yeah.
Like back then. Like there was this huge craze for it, but not so much here in Colorado.
Yeah, and I didn't like research the gym or anything. I just went. And I always say this, like I'm so lucky that like I walked into that because I started learning like real stuff. And Brad Gum was the owner. He fought in the early UFCs, but he was only a few years older than me. He was like 5 years older, but he had like, I don't know, like 40 fights or something by the time he was teaching. So I got to, because it was such a small gym, I trained with him all the time. How many classes had like 8 people? And that like really built my career of just the people in the class that we had all did real well, went on to have like pro careers and stuff. And it was just, we didn't do weight classes. We didn't do anything like.
Just mat time.
We could only have like 2 people sparring at a time on the mat. That's how small it was. And it didn't matter if you were 125 pounds and I'm 200 pounds. If it's your turn to be in, and it made people like tough as hell, like hard gym. We were hitting people through the walls, like we were going through the drywall, and it was just like a gladiator school gym. So I just got into it, and I only went to do it for fun as like a workout because I missed wrestling and playing sports.
Such a good workout.
Yeah, and I was working a job that I hated. I never knew that you could fight locally. I knew what the UFC was, but I didn't know that there were like regional local shows. I didn't know that you could just get into fighting like that. I thought these guys in the UFC were like discovered somewhere. And so I did it for about 9 months, and I was fairly fresh off wrestling and stuff. So still in shape. And Brad asked me, he's like, "Hey, are you ever interested in doing MMA?" And I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." So he's like, "All right, I could get you a fight." And I fought at the Red Lion Hotel on like I-70 in Quebec. And I had a few there, and I did well. Actually, I had one amateur fight, and I lost a decision, and then went pro. So
that's crazy,
yeah,
dude.
I lost a decision, which is still questionable, I think. I knocked this guy's teeth out, everything. He threw up in the ring, and then I lost the decision just based off like, this was at heavyweight too, and I was still weighing. I had to gain weight to make. At weigh-ins, they were like, "You're too light," so I had to chug a bunch of water to fight heavyweight. And right after that, Colorado came up with this rule. They outlawed amateur MMA, and I had already had a fight lined up. Now they call it, it's the stupidest thing ever, they call it elimination fighting. They just changed the name of it. But at the time, I had already had an opponent. It was like a few weeks out. The promoter called and was like, "Hey, he can't fight anymore unless he wants to go pro." He's like, "Now, he can fight the same guy. He's just going to have to get licensed as a pro." So I was like, "Yeah, let's do it." And I ended up winning that. And then I won, I think it was like 7 in a row. And back then, I used to get home. I worked nights. I bounced at clubs and stuff, like strip clubs and everywhere. I left the warehouse job. Once I started training MMA, I was like, "Dude, I want to do this all day long." So I found night jobs, bouncing, and so I could train all day. So when I was done training, I would go home and I would just email promoters all the time. I would like search this show, that, and I would just try to find their email, and I would send out like 100 a day. I felt like trying to get myself fights. I didn't have a manager or anything. And I happened to hit up this promotion in Canada called Maximum Fighting Championship. And they just had somebody fall out. So they were looking for an opponent against a guy named Jesse Forbes. So he was on Ultimate Fighter 3.
Yeah.
So like, "You're in, like, you want to do it? You got to get a passport." I'd never been out of the country or anything.
Wow. So you just from pounding the keyboard, you eventually found your way in to talk to somebody that was like,
yeah, this promoter hit me back, and they brought me in to lose. And it was on HDNet. I don't know if you remember that channel.
God, I don't know. I remember Fuel TV because I went back to watch some of your old fights, which reminds me I got to bring something up here in a minute.
This is way before. Okay. This is way before Fuel.
Yeah.
So Mark Cuban owned it. It was called HDNet Fights.
Okay.
So it was televised, and I was pumped. I was the co-main event. And they brought me in to lose for sure because it was short notice, everything. And
Is that where they were showing TUF on? Was it on?
No.
Okay.
Ultimate Fighter was on Spike back then.
Okay, that's what it was. Yeah, I knew that there was another network.
Yeah.
Because those TV channels back then, like Spike and Fuel TV, were so badass because it was all like freestyle motocross, surfing was really big,
extreme sports,
punk rock, yeah, and fighting was kind of fell into that, like genre.
Anyway, actually, I was going even further. I was about to go through the whole career. That's how I got into it.
That's badass.
Yeah.
So you get into it, you get there, and you had a good run, right? Like had a couple good showings from what I remember. And then you had one fight where you thought you had a toothache or something. And then you had actually fractured your jaw. So you got sent home, right?
Yeah. On the Ultimate Fighter.
Yeah.
So when I got on the Ultimate Fighter, I had won a ton and I was knocking everybody out, TKOs. I didn't have a lot of submissions. And they were always, I'm biased. I'll say they're always great fights. They're exciting, but I would always finish everybody.
Well, I'm a fan of yours, or I'm a fan of watching your fights.
Oh, I appreciate
I should say that because you're one of those people. It's like to compare it to somebody that's fighting now, which you still are. But like when Justin Gaethje walks into the cage, like you know what's going to happen, and
like
I kind
violence
of felt
is about to happen.
Yeah, and I felt like there's certain guys like I enjoy watching violent fighters. I guess. Maybe that's just from a fan's perspective, right? But I always felt like you were a guy that left it all in there, and there was always going to be some fireworks, dude. Like, there's going to be some blood. There's going to be some knee. I mean, you were doing a lot of stuff in the UFC that I remember. Like, you were just a knee machine at one point, right? Like, you were kneeing everybody, dude.
I learned one thing, and I'm like, I'm just going to spam it.
But that was so exciting to watch back then because there wasn't a ton of guys that were doing that. Like,
yeah, that's the thing is like I'll learn something and then I get hooked. I like fixate on things. I'm like OCD.
Yeah,
but I think that makes like good for coaching, I guess, because you'll show me something and if I like it, I will try it over and over and over again. And I'll practice it and like I like fixate on like I dream about it. And especially like highlight stuff like that. Like when I learned like a flying knee, I was like, oh, I'm going to throw this on everybody. And it like worked against me too. But yeah.
But I think being OCD like that too, if you're any sort of professional, whether it's a corporate professional, mixed martial artist, an artist, right? Somebody that paints, like you have to have some sort of level of OCD, even like military people, right? Like, because everything is about keeping everything kind of in order and having it set. And like, I definitely have it. Being a roadie, all roadies have OCD, dude.
Oh yeah, you're probably lining up cases a certain way if it was turned.
Oh,
like,
they're labeled perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, who the fuck used this over here if something didn't go back in the same spot, But
yeah, so I broke my jaw. So another funny story is going to the Ultimate Fighter. So I was the alternate on season 7 actually, and then I was on season 11.
Okay.
So I was almost on season 7. I was in Vegas while they were filming on standby. Somebody missed weight or got hurt or whatever, and didn't get on. Go home. I'm like, oh fuck, like you're bummed, but I just kept fighting. Well, season 11 came around and they were doing the same weight class, and so they called me. At first, I was like, I'm not applying again. Like it was kind of miserable.
Mm-hmm.
I sat in a hotel room. They made me make weight. They made me sit around for an entire day on weight. And then to not get used, and you're just like, you barely get paid for it. Those guys don't make very much money on the Ultimate Fighter. I think back then it was like $500 a week while you were gone.
Wow.
Luckily, cost of living was a little bit cheaper, but $500 was barely paying bills. You pretty much had to quit your job because who's going to give you 6 weeks off to go be on a show? Yeah. So if you didn't make it, it was like you put everything into it, and now like you better go.
There's a lot of guys that didn't make it, but there's a lot of guys like you that have built a career kind of.
Yeah.
Not solely off of that. I don't want to say that because it takes much more than that, I know, than just going on the TV show or whatever. And
it's a hustle.
Yeah, it is. But it's a way to get in that limelight a little bit, to get known and
meet people. And like, so when I'm leaving for the Ultimate Fighter, so they called me because I wasn't going to apply, and they were like, hey, do you want to be on this season? Basically, you're on. But I still had to send in a video and everything and interview, but I didn't have to go to tryouts and everything. They're like, we've already seen it. We like you. You're pretty much on. Don't fuck up. Don't go to jail. Don't do this. Don't do that. So I'm leaving for the Ultimate Fighter, and I don't know. They wouldn't tell you like if you fight to get in the house or if you're just on the show. I think it's still up in the air to this day. Like they don't let you know. Just come ready. So as I'm at DIA, I'm checking in for my flight, and I see a return flight in 3 days. So they'd automatically, I mean, the UFC has so many miles and everything. They'd already booked everybody return flights. So I see that. I call my coach, and I was like, all right, I'm fighting to get in the house because they have a return flight booked for me in case I don't win. And then we go from there. I had met everybody going to the interviews, and the guy that I ended up fighting on the Ultimate Fighter to get into the house was the guy I hung out with the most at the interviews. Him and another I fought a guy named Victor O'Donnell. He was from Ohio. And then one of my friends, Brian Rogers, who lives out here now, used to train at Factory X and was in Bellator and stuff, was from Ohio. And I remember him telling me before that, he's like, listen, if you fight this guy, no problem. He's like all ground. He's just going to try to wrestle you. He's going to try to submit you, everything. So I get Victor, and I'm like thinking in my head, I'm like all wrestling ground, like be ready for him to shoot. And this was before you could find a ton of tape on everybody or anything. Well, we go out and we have a 3-round basically like slug match, just back and forth. And it was brutal. It was, what did it go an extra? Maybe the fight was 2 rounds and we went to a 3rd round, like a sudden death round, or it was 3 and we went a 4th round. We had to go an extra round. Oh, and it was just like jacking each other back and forth. And,
they do that in some fight organizations too, because I think I remember in Glory or something.
Yeah, I went an extra round in Glory.
You went an extra round, and yeah.
I think Bare Knuckle does the same.
Do they?
Yeah, a lot of them do now.
Okay.
Because they don't want to draw. Fans hate draws. Yeah. You feel like unfulfilled.
Oh, it sucks.
So we're on there and just back and forth, just smashing each other. And it was cool because Tito, at some point, took like a liking to me. And, you know, that's like your dream. Like, I grew up watching him.
Especially in that time.
And during the fight, like, he stands up and he's by the cage and he's, like, giving me instructions and stuff. I end up winning the fight, the sudden death round. And Victor and I are both just smashed up. He went to the hospital. I broke his orbital. They took him out on a stretcher. But finished the fight. Like, he didn't go down. And then I get into the house, but I'm feeling, like, sick and just, like, beat up. Because right after the fight, we were, like, second to last. That's when they do like the production thing. You come out, Dana's like, welcome to the Ultimate Fighter. All you guys won, you're in. Then they take you in a van. The van pulls up and it's a free-for-all. So you like get out. Everybody runs in the house trying to find the best room and everything. It's not preset. And I'm like the last out of the van. I was like second to last to fight, just dead. Like everybody else had like quick knockouts and stuff. And I just kind of knew something was wrong, but I'm like, maybe just rough fight. Get my room. My bed ended up being in a room with entirely the other team that I didn't end up on. Oh, I was the only guy from Tito's team that was in like all of
I'll have to go back and watch this. Dude,
yeah.
Because like that's kind of like the good part of the Ultimate Fighter is like seeing all this bullshit that happens, man. I wouldn't want to be in it, but
yeah. And then training, like, dude, we go right into training the next day. Coaches pick teams. They're like, all right, let's start training twice a day. So we were sparring and stuff. And like every time I would get hit, I would like stop and be like grabbing my face, put my glove on my face.
And of course, you're probably not saying anything, right? Because the last thing you want to do is ruin your chance, right?
Yeah, I don't even like, it doesn't even occur to me that my jaw is broken or anything. So I keep sparring and like, yeah, you don't want to be a baby. You're on TV. Like there's cameras in your face. And then like Tito and his coaches are like, let's go, get back in there. What are you doing? Like, so you just keep going. And it was like a week and a half later, the production crew noticed that like every time grappling or whatever, somebody on my face, I was like cold sweats. And so they're like, hey, we want to take you to get checked out. So they take me to a dentist. They x-ray me. And the dentist is like, comes in. He's like, okay, I see the problem. You have a broken tooth in the back. He's like, we're going to pull it. And I'm like, all right, yeah, pull it. You know, it's a back like molar or whatever. And I'm thinking, this is my dream. This is my shot. I'm like, pull the tooth. I don't care. Yeah. So they get everything ready. I think it was like the next day they took me back to like pull my tooth. And I'm in there and they've got me like geared up, ready to go. And all of a sudden the UFC doctor, this guy, Dr. Davidson, who kind of oversees all the medical, he travels to every show. I mean, every country. he's like their guy. Comes walking in, he's like, stop right now. And he's like, let me talk to you, Chris. And he talks to me, he tells me, he's like, you don't have a broken tooth. He's like, your jaw is broken. Pulls up the x-ray. It's right here, clear as day.
Oh, damn.
And
at least the UFC cares about you enough to have that, because they could have just let you keep going, right? If this is really a blood sport or whatever, it would have been like.
And I got to know him real well, and like Dr. Davidson's a real solid guy. Like everything I ever dealt with him, like very honest, very, like he pays attention. The dentist obviously didn't.
Yeah, they might have fucked you up trying to pull your tooth if you had a
fractured
jaw or something, right?
So he's like, do you know how bad that would have hurt to have them pull a healthy tooth?
Dude.
Like, my teeth were fine. He goes, they were going to pull a healthy tooth. He pulled up the x-ray. I'm not a doctor. He goes, see that line? I'm like, yeah, I can see it. He goes, your jaw's broken. And it wasn't broken through like in half, but it was like fractured up through. And so then after that, like I'm thinking, to this day, I still think that dentist was trying to take advantage of the UFC medical. Like, we're going to get our money. Because I've heard a lot of dentists. What do you know?
That's the fucked up part, man. It's like you really have to trust who you're going to. And that's why I pay extra to go see my primary doctor now. Because any of the other ones I'm going to are just like, they're the typical by the book. And a lot of them aren't even doctors. They're like PAs. If you just go to whoever your insurance is and they're like, oh, yeah, you need to be on this or that. Or
the UFC has great health insurance and stuff. So they'll pay anything, like surgery, everything. And like, I think these doctors know that. They're like, damn, let's get our money. So he stopped the whole thing. I mean, I have the bib on, everything. They're getting ready, like prepping.
Did you at least get the gas?
No.
Yeah, damn it.
No, but they had me prepped, ready to go. Yeah. And like, luckily he came walking in and was like, stop. So they take me back and I think nothing of it. I'm like, all right, whatever. Like, they don't tell me anything. I go back to the training center. I tell Tito, I'm like, yeah, let me talk to you for a second. I didn't tell everybody else because I might be fighting guys on my team. I tell him and he's like, all right. And they had a fight pick right after this. And he's like, here's what we're going to do. I don't know if I've ever told this, actually. This is funny. He's like, here's what we're going to do. And this is just him and I. He's like, I've been around Vegas a long time. Like, I know anybody here. He's like, if you get picked, because you're the most banged up, most likely they're going to pick you. Before you fight, he's like, I'll get somebody to come in here and shoot you full of Novocaine, everything. He's like, you'll be good. He's like, you won't feel anything. And I'm like, all right, done. And he's like, so keep your head up. He's like, don't tell anybody. He was serious. He's like, I'll get a guy to come in here and inject you with Novocaine, and you won't even know.
That's crazy, dude.
And if you're listening to this, like nothing against him. Like I was pushing for it too, because I'm like, dude, I can't go home. Like this is
your chance, right?
Yeah. So he was kind of feeling like what I wanted. So they picked the fight. It wasn't me. And then right after that, Daniel was like, hold on here. Like, we got to talk. And I don't know what's going on because people have asked me this since. And there's a part on the show where he gives a speech. And then he's like, hey, Chris, step forward. And I'm thinking like, all right, what's up? Like, are we doing 2 fights? And he's like, I'm sorry, you can't continue anymore. You got to go home. Your jaw is fractured. And dude, it crushed me. I was like trying to not cry on national TV. Like, it was like broken.
But then shortly after that, you got called up to the UFC, right? And that's kind of like...
Yeah, so I went home thinking that, like, they didn't give me any word of anything, Go home, heal up, we'll be in contact, which basically I assume just meant, like, try again. Mm-hmm. I go home, I have no job. Luckily, a guy at our gym, he owned a tech company. He's like, you come work for me. This is a whole nother story. Actually, do you mind if we take a bathroom break?
No, not at all, man. Let's do it.
I was just telling him I got like 2 bags last night of IV. I had a lady come over last night.
Yeah.
And
dude, I would get one every week if I could.
Yeah, we were just talking about that.
Bobby I love that shit, dude. Right, give me the fucking NAD. Give it like whatever's on the menu. I'll take it all.
Yeah, I think I got NAD. She gave me a B12 shot. I was like, give it all to me.
Oh, we're back.
Yeah, I never get sick.
Tell me about this Fit Soda stuff, because this is going to be my first time trying it. Do I need to drink it cold or?
It's always better cold.
Yeah,
for sure.
We got some ice.
Oh, if you got ice,
yeah. There's some in that Yeti cup right there. It's clean.
Oh, you guys had it set.
We never know if we're going to drink whiskey or tequila or
I know
whatever.
If I wasn't fighting in a couple weeks, I don't know. Maybe the whiskey will clear me up. That's what my grandpa used to say.
It does, actually. You want a little nip of it? Man?
Hey, throw it in here.
Okay. I'm
fighting bare knuckle anyway. They expect it.
Yeah, We got to dive into that. I want to get back into the UFC stuff with you.
Yeah.
But yeah, tell me a little bit. Actually, this is exclusively from Evergreen Liquors. They bought a special bottle. So this is a reserve bottle that we got from Evergreen Liquors. Shout out.
I'm in.
This is really good. This is actually from Luke Cadillo.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
He was
brought
just on
this
my
in.
podcast
Yeah,
the other day.
some toast.
Luke's the man.
That was a great episode, by the way, dude. I was cracking up.
That was one of
my
Him and I have played like golf and stuff together, and like Luke is a savage.
But yeah, we got all the. What's your flavor?
I'll have what you're having.
Let's try this Breckenridge out.
Breckenridge has good whiskey. I don't think I've had that one.
Jeremy, you in?
Oh God,
You're gonna have to grab a glass, dude. Yeah, you're in. Come on, bro.
There's something to be said about whiskey when you're sick. I swear to God.
Don't make me fire you.
Don't make a man out of you.
But yeah, so tell me about this big news on the contract front, right?
Yeah.
Did you sign a multiple fight contract? I haven't really read into it. So like what's going on there? Your last fight was fucking insane, dude. Like
I love
first round knockout. So rad. The sport is, I think it's amazing, man. Like
I enjoyed it a lot.
They're doing it right. Like this is the first time that I normally, like most of these other organizations, I don't really get excited about, like outside of the UFC. Like Glory was awesome.
Yeah, it just never took off.
Bellator was great back in the day, and it's just I don't know. They're the way the fighters that they're bringing in, you included, are people that I want to see. You got like Chad Mendez in there. They're dropping some big names. They got to be dropping some coin, I would imagine.
Yeah, and I honestly, people ask me, I don't know where their money comes from. I don't, but they are dropping
big one,
some money.
or are we just doing a taste? Okay,
it's been a minute anyway.
I don't want to be the reason, dude. So.
Nah. Here's one thing. I've been around doing it a long time.
Yeah.
I don't drink during fight camp really. One time's not going to hurt you.
Yeah.
I remember Chuck Liddell telling me on the show, actually. He's like, look, like, I train hard as fuck. I train all the time. If there's times I want to go out and have a drink, I do.
Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers. He's like, I always make sure I'm not hungover.
Right.
If it ruins your training, then it hurts.
I don't know.
It's good?
It's all right.
I can't taste the difference.
I don't know. I feel like I'm drinking Jim Beam again.
Watch, that's going to clear me up.
It will. It'll help.
That's good.
It'll help the throat.
Yeah.
For sure.
What was the question?
Oh, so bare knuckle.
Yeah.
Your contract, and is it just a one fight contract, or is it per fight, or what's going on there, dude? Like, I'm so pumped, and I'm even more pumped that it's happening right here in Colorado.
This is the biggest card they've ever done. It's their first pay-per-view too, so it's
Is
going to be
it?
a pay-per-view. And I'll pitch the card here. It's Luke Rockhold versus Mike Perry, Chad Mendez versus Eddie Alvarez, which is nuts. Ben Rothwell is fighting Josh Watson, who just knocked out Greg Hardy. So quick turnaround for him, but I mean, he just knocked out Greg Hardy.
Yeah.
Now, granted, Greg Hardy's not like an amazing fighter, but he's huge. He was way bigger than Josh. And those NFL guys pack some power. We know it.
Dude, it's insane.
They're
They're just a different level of human, man. Like,
the athleticism people don't even understand.
we had Josh. Why am I drawing Josh Walker in here the other day? Do you know Josh?
I don't, but I listened to part of the episode.
Yeah, he's a rad dude. It was the first time we had met, and at the end of the pod, we had a great time. We went 4 hours. We drank a lot during the podcast, but at the end of it, I went to go like bro down with him, like give him a little slap, like a handshake and then a pat on the back. And dude, I felt like I was slapping a fucking steel I-beam.
Yeah.
And same with Derek. Like, Derek's the only guy that, like, when he walks in the studio, I'm like, shit. And when he's sitting across from me, he's got these eyes that, like, look through the back of your skull, dude. Like, he's looking, like, past you, dude. Like,
yeah, he's one of my friends, man. I know exactly what you're talking about. I've held mitts for him. I trained with him a little bit. He wants to get back to it. He actually texted me the other day.
Such a good guy, dude.
I don't want to totally call him out on here, but he texted me the other day, and he said, bare knuckle, and then like the thinking emoji, and I was like, oh shit, you want in?
Really?
I was like, dude, they'll have you in a minute.
Imagine.
He's another kind of athlete. Yeah. You see him big, like you see a big guy like that, and us, like, we're not small, but we're smaller, way smaller. We look like different species. And you're like, oh, I could at least outrun that guy. Like, you're not outrunning him either.
Hell no.
And, like, you can't out-juke that guy. Like, the athletic ability of those guys is insane.
He's just a monster. Like, I'm a pretty big dude. I'm 6'3", 255. Like, I don't feel small in most places. But when, like, those guys walk in the room, it's a different level of just human, you know?
And Derek can hit, too, man. He's got hands. Like, he can box.
I've seen him, yeah.
Yeah.
And he's got a little bit of a wrestling background, you know, too. And
just freak athlete.
Yeah.
His defensive lineman, he said it before on podcasts, and like I've known it just from being in the gym with them. They move different, you know. Offensive guys stay put. Defensive guys have to be mobile, and they're like active with arms, everything. Like they're athletes. That would be a scary.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to stand like I fight professionally. I wouldn't want to stand across from him. Like,
I would pay a lot of money to see that, dude. Whatever the pay-per-view cost is, ringside seat, whatever, dude. I'm going.
Yeah, so. Bare Knuckles listening. He sent me that, like, I was like, oh, shit, he's bored now. He's ready to get in. But no, so going back to my contract, oddly enough, I did another one-fight deal with them, actually. My first fight was one fight. Without getting into...
We don't have to get into crazy details or anything, but...
No, I'm trying to think how to word it. The first one was one fight. One, because they offered me 3. The money wasn't what I wanted. So they told me the first one was kind of a trial. But the multiple fight contract they offered me the first time, the money kind of stayed the same. And I was like, well, I'm thinking if I get a highlight knockout or something, it goes one of two ways, right? Yeah. So I bet on myself. It goes one of two ways. I could have signed the 3 and been guaranteed. I was like, if I lose, they could drop the money. They could say, no, we're out, whatever. So I bet on myself, and I was like, look, if I get what I want, then I'm going to ask for a lot more money. I think one of their problems is they've grown so fast. So their communication's not like the best. I didn't hear from them after that fight for a while, and I was like, man, I thought they'd be pumped. Like, this
really?
And that. Yeah,
Nothing.
I thought they'd come at me with a contract right away. Didn't really hear from them. I was like, all right, you know. I was talking
it's
to
a new organization. They're probably figuring it out a little bit too.
And they're traveling all over the place. They actually work with like a small crew. Probably similar to what you're used to, you know, like same crew, band, travel, like that like band manager, you know, you're organizing all these cities. And then
those rock and rollers, they go in, you hire local labor. Basically, it'll be a crew of, depends on how big the production is, but like I was out with the Killers for a long time.
Oh, that's awesome.
And we were a super small crew. It was like probably 25 guys, and we went all over the world during the heyday of it. And then you rely on local labor that's provided. So you're just giving them direction. So you'll have 100 dudes to put the show together. Yeah. But it's 20 guys giving those 100 people directions.
Different in every city, too.
Yeah, it is.
And that's essentially, I think, what they're doing, because they use like some local people. So I didn't hear from them for a bit. I'm like, all right, you know, I had some boxing offers and some other offers come up that I was considering. And then they announced the Denver card, and we ended up talking, and they're like, yeah, do you want to do it again? I'm like, yeah. I mean, I told you that right after, but it's been a minute. Like, where have you been? You know, felt like a bitter ex-girlfriend a little.
Been out hoeing around.
Yeah. We negotiated a bit. I don't use management anymore and do it myself. Just done it a while, and managers are scumbags for the most part in this sport. And yeah,
I can imagine.
They always got their hand out, and they don't.
It seems like that in most industries, man. It's like, it's never... They're always trying to, like, we've had a couple people try to come in on the podcast side. I don't know. Well, you guys are kind of owned by, this is really good, by the way, Fit Soda.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, no, this is really good.
It's hydrating. It's got electrolytes
and
BCAAs.
it's not bad for you, right? There's no sugar or anything.
No sugar, no coloring.
I mean, there's a guy curling on here and running. And
you want to look jacked like that.
Yeah.
And
oh, it's got some branched chain amino acids too.
Yeah, so those are good for those are good for recovery, and then electrolytes in it, so it's a hydrating soda.
Dope.
0 calories, 0 sugar.
Cool, man. It's good.
Yeah. So we ended up negotiating for a bit on this one, and got it done. So it's still a one-fight deal. They're like, let's get this fight done, because we didn't come to agreement until a few weeks ago.
I got to change one of my contracts. I'm supposed to be going out on a show, but I'm going to do everything I can to show up a couple days late so I can come check this out. Like, I'm all about it. And
this card is sick.
It's going to be rad.
Even if I wasn't fighting on this, I'd go.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah. I want to see how Rockhold does in bare knuckle. Perry, he's a psycho. He's gonna make it fun either way.
Yeah.
And then Mendez, Alvarez. There's a bunch of good fights.
I don't have my glasses on, but that Ferreira,
Yeah,
the female,
probably,
yeah. Dude, she's a savage. I was watching some of her highlights the other day, and that's going to be a good fight too. But this is just awesome, man. Like, I'm pumped.
Yeah.
Pumped to see this.
The best thing about bare knuckle, I think, is their quick pace. So it's 5 2-minute rounds, but most of them don't go that long, and it's exciting. Like it's just quick. I wasn't sure if I would. I like that they like start you in the center right there, because what it does is it forces you. Like you're pretty much in like engagement distance.
So it pretty much follows boxing rules, right? Like you're gonna. Well, I guess boxers start in the corners, don't they?
And that gives you.
I didn't even really realize that because I haven't watched enough of this. Like
when you start opposite corners, it gives. If one guy's like quicker on his feet and everything, it gives you time to dance around, feel it out.
Right.
They start you. I think it's
like toe to toe,
3 or 4 feet apart. So it's about like this. Damn. So one step, I could hit you. So that's your choice if you want to like right when they say like what is it, knuckle up or whatever. I had to look before because I was like, I gotta make sure I know. He's not saying go. Yeah. You could choose to back up and out, but like you also don't want to get caught on your back foot because one guy might be coming straight in.
Damn.
But yeah,
and
it's exciting.
This is straight up boxing though. There's no kicks. There's no takedowns. It's just.
I would say the only difference between boxing and this is they allow you to clinch the head.
Okay.
So you can hold the head and throw. Yeah, kind of like bar style. Yeah. In boxing, you definitely can't do that. As long as you're you have one hand and you're active with the other, they'll let you like. I mean, if you're strong enough to hold on to somebody's head and hit 20 punches, they'll let it keep going. Where boxing, you try to do that once, and they're like, "Don't grab the head,
you're screwed."
Yeah.
Yeah, how different is that? I mean, it's totally different, right? Because this is strictly a stand-up. You don't have to worry about takedowns, but then also you have no glove element. Like, how different is this from mixed martial arts or traditional boxing or anything like that? Like, for you, like, how hard was the transition? I'm sure there's a ton of different technique that goes into it.
It's a little different, and I mean, I haven't talked to a bunch of guys that have done it beforehand. So I train at Genesis Training Academy in Arvada here. Sorry.
Yeah, all good.
I keep trying to clear my throat. My coach, Jake Ramos, has been in boxing for a long time and MMA. So he used to coach Gaethje and like a lot of studs, you know, and professional boxers as well. He's won world titles and stuff in boxing. So he started looking at this when the guy down at the bottom, Gertz, is from my team too. So Gert, and so is Josh Copeland, who's next to me or my fight.
Oh yeah.
All 3 of us were on the last one.
There's some mountain men right there.
Yeah, he's a big dude. All 3 of us were on the last card, and it was all of our first one. So Jake started kind of looking at it, and we made some adjustments that weren't the same as a boxing glove, not the same as an MMA glove, and like having all the tape. So I did have to learn how to throw my punches a little bit different. And what I mean by that is, like when you throw your cross with the glove on, you don't have to worry about a ton of rotation. With MMA, your hand's all taped up, then you have the glove, and it's like compact. With a boxing glove, it's even more.
And it's kind of something to grip onto too, right? Like isn't
tape
there a
it.
little piece of foam or
No.
a roll in there or something of some sort?
The way they tape, there will be a little bit.
Okay.
But it protects your hand. So this, like, the tape has to be like 2 fingers down from the knuckles, everything, and it's basically just to hold your wrist. And I started realizing when I took my boxing gloves and stuff off and I was hitting mitts, a lot of my hooks and stuff were hitting like these front knuckles, we started having to like bend my wrist a little bit, which had to change how my elbow was just to make sure you don't break your hand. Same with throwing across. Like now I focus on rotating my thumb like overly or over exaggerate it. Because if I think here the whole time, most likely I might hit here. If I over exaggerate to here, I'm probably going to hit it here. If that makes any sense.
No, it makes total sense.
It's kind of like throwing head kicks. Like I'll aim for people's neck because then I'll most likely hit you in the head. If I aim for your head, it might go over.
Right.
So yeah, there was some little adjustments, but I would say it's way different than MMA, obviously. But boxing, I do straight boxing, basically training for this. Other than some of the
That's
boxers,
got to be kind of a relief a little bit, I would think, in the training aspect, right? Like
it is.
that's always a fun, or that's some of the most fun that I have, and some of the best workouts that I get is when I'm hitting mitts or something, right, at Muay Thai, and I'm doing it at a very low level, right? Like
it's simplified it a lot. Well,
I enjoy that. I enjoy that type of training.
I was just talking about this the other day, because when I say simplified, I mean, I still get beat up by guys boxing and everything. I'm not saying it's easier, but when I go in there and then I have to focus on, you have 2 hands that you could hit me with. So it simplifies it. It doesn't make it easier, because like the craftier you get,
It's more technical, right?
Yeah. And then you got to hide it a bit more with your offense. Defense, at least I only have to focus on those. With MMA, like I might duck a punch, get kicked, kneed, elbowed, taken down. So it's not easier. But now I just go in and I focus on, like, these are the only 2 weapons you have, at least. You don't have fucking 12.
Right.
Stuff's not coming over here, and I'm wondering, like, who
you
hit
might
me
not
over
end
there.
up in a rear naked choke.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
And then the training, because with MMA, if you've ever done MMA, it feels like there's not enough hours in the day. You got to do boxing, Muay Thai, jiu-jitsu, wrestling, strength and conditioning, all these things. And you don't want to, like, lack on one, so you're trying to get them all in, but you can only work out so many times in a day. And it just, like, there's times where a lot of us talk, and we're like, at the end of the week, we're like, man, there's not enough hours in the week. Like, even if I wanted to try something new, like, when would I fit that in?
Because you're basically cross-training in, like, 5 different disciplines, really.
Yeah.
If you think about it. Like,
and then you have to put it all together, because then we also spar MMA in a day or 2 days, and it's like, that's with all of it together. But then you work on the individual skills. It's just like,
yeah, it's crazy. I've never really thought about it that way, but
yeah, it's like stimulation overload almost. And then you take wrestling, and you might go to a college and wrestle or whatever, but they don't wrestle on walls. So then, like, wall wrestling or cage wrestling is a whole nother thing. It's overwhelming, kind of like there's so many things to focus on.
yeah.
Where boxing, so during the week I do strength and conditioning, I hit mitts, and I spar. And then I do, like, cardio on my own, and I lift on my own a little bit, like, depending on the day. But it's just, like, simplified. Just a lot more compact. So then it doesn't feel like I don't have enough time to, like, do this.
Right.
And the training is easier on your body, Nobody's trying to, like, choke me. I mean,
Dude, for me, like, I still go to jiu-jitsu, and I'm doing it at a very low level, but still, I, like, shout out to John Bacon. I'm sure you're listening to this. The dude I'm going in and rolling against is, he's bigger than I am. And there's occasionally where you'll get caught and you're like, fuck, you leave the next day and your neck is just
tweaked.
It's the little shit like that, It's like,
Or armbarred or this or
Yeah.
that. Basically, when I train, other than, like, strength and conditioning stuff, I'm sore from the waist up. Or with MMA or kickboxing and stuff, you get kicked in your legs, and then like strength and conditioning, they're like, we're doing squats today, and you're like, my leg's purple.
Yeah.
So waist up, shoulders get sore, burned out, your neck. Like, I do a lot of neck exercises. Part of my neck exercises is still doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
The boxers, I realize when I go and do neck exercises with them, they're like struggling. We'll hang our heads off the ring and like that stuff. I can do that all day. I found out the first time I went to the boxing
Just from
practice.
you think training jiu-jitsu or?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, they're not used to people grabbing their necks and stuff. I'm
Yeah,
used
it's
to-
constantly in jiu-jitsu, right? Somebody's got a hold of you. It could even be your gi or whatever, right? Like you just
And growing up wrestling, people are like snapping your head down.
and that head
takedowns or
pressure, like
drive.
it's natural, right?
Guys that have just boxed their whole life are not used to people like doing any of this. So when we were doing neck exercises the first time, like my coach is like, all right, 1 minute of this exercise. And I was like talking to him the whole time doing it. And like other guys were stopping. I'm like, oh yeah, they're not used to people like hanging 200 pounds off their neck.
Yeah.
But it's fun. I really like honing in the skill of just boxing right now. And again, I'll do jiu-jitsu like once, maybe twice a week. I'll probably cut it back as we're getting closer, but I still love it. Plus, it's cardio. I just look at it as like body conditioning.
Yeah.
You know, where do you do jiu-jitsu at?
Just right up the street here at Brazilian Top Team. It's
Okay.
cool.
They got a Brazilian top team here, huh?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. It's Dave Roberts. We've had him on the podcast before. He's an old UFC vet from like way back when, like UFC 10 or something.
I think I do know that name.
And he used to, I don't know if he co-owned a gym with Rampage for a little while. He used to coach in corner with Rampage. And
Oh, really?
stuff back in the day, back in his prime. But now he's just doing his own thing, and they have one here in Evergreen and then one in Conifer, and it's cool. I hit him up. He's just a fucking great guy.
Yeah.
I hit him up, and I was like, yo, the only time that I can really find, because typically we're podcasting at night or I'm on the road, and nobody was doing like a lunch class up here or anything like that. So I was trying to find a spot up here that would do a lunch roll, and I hit him up and he opened it up. Now all of a sudden it's turned into this whole thing where it's like a lot of people up here work remotely. So it's all dads and shit, dude. Like
That's fun though.
There's no pros coming in there for sure. But Dave is an awesome coach and has been. It's good. It's a good group of people in there.
Yeah.
So.
If you guys ever want, so I go to Catharo Training Center, which is on Kipling and 470, basically.
Okay.
Kind of near Chatfield. If you guys ever want, there's a lunchtime class, so at noon, and we get people from all different gyms. The coach loves cross training. There's other gyms from like Parker and stuff that'll bring like 10 people at a time, and like they just jump in. And
that's so
it's
rad.
fun, yeah.
Yeah, I love the lunch rolls because a lot of the work that I do outside the podcast is on the East Coast, so I'm up early.
Yeah.
So I can't go in. They have a 6 a.m. too that I used to love going to, but I just can't make it now. I'm just too busy with life. But lunch, I can take a lunch break for an hour and go try to choke somebody or get choked, one of the two. So
yeah, they have a 6 a.m. class at Catharo I go to sometimes, and it's like a 30-40 minute drive from me, so that sucks a little bit. But
yeah, this is like 5 minutes, so
yeah.
I can totally make that. I'm like, oh shit, it's 11:55.
Walk over.
I got to end this conference call. Click,
Yeah, I think it's good, and as long as you just keep doing something.
Yeah, it's all about that. Like, for me, the cardio that I get from rolling, like the drilling is awesome, but the actual roll, that's why I'm there for the last 10 minutes of class, honestly.
Yeah.
That's and the cardio that I get out of that, like, it's unmatched for me because I don't push myself hard enough. I have been with some personal goals, and I actually need to go down and talk to Eric to achieve some of these goals, I think.
Jump in with me.
Yeah.
I got a small group. We do Monday, Wednesday at 7 a.m.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Down at Landau?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Well, we
might do that.
What's great for me, why I love Catharo too, is so like I said earlier, I'm like ADD. I'm hyper. Yeah. I have a hard time paying attention. I didn't do great in school. Just distracted by a lot of different things. The way classes are structured there is we roll for the first half an hour, and then my coach teaches.
Oh, that's
so
cool.
You're like tired. So then you got I get all my energy out, and then I can pay attention better.
Sure.
First time I ever went down there, I was like, oh, this is cool. I'm like sweating and I'm tired. I never understood in jiu-jitsu, and I've trained at some real traditional gyms, non-traditional. You warm up for like 15, 20 minutes, and then they teach for an hour. I'm like, what did I warm up for? Because now we're just like doing walkthrough moves.
Yeah.
And then at the end of that, they're like, okay, now let's roll. And I'm like, maybe I'm old or just beat up, but I'm like, now I'm stiff because like I've been doing the moves, but not hard. We did this like warm up to get your lungs tired, and then I sat there and watched you teach. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, I understand that. I guess it depends on my partner too, because like back to John Bacon, he's probably, I don't know, maybe 280. Like, I hope I'm not offending you, John, but he used to be a lineman, like college lineman and stuff. Like, he's a big dude, and so like. For me, if I'm working off my back and we're working on just like scissor sweeps to sweep him or whatever, dude, I'm sweating a little bit.
Yeah, that's different.
Yeah, I'm moving a lot of man.
And then how long you been doing it?
God, so the podcast got so busy, COVID shut it down. So I was doing it prior to COVID. Same thing, kids got me into it. Like, that's one of the things I've told my daughters. If they want to go on a date, they need to be purple belts before I'll let them.
You better make sure you're above a purple belt, though. That way he's not like, I'm going to fuck you up, too.
Exactly.
I'll have her home when I want.
So, and they were going to some bullshit taekwondo place where it was just like, every time I turned around, they wanted $60 for a belt.
Yeah.
I'm looking at these black belt kids that are like 12, 11 years old, and they couldn't fight their way out of a fucking paper bag, dude. I'm sorry. So it's just like, I'm not saying that all Taekwondo is like that. I'm sure that there's some excellent gyms. And actually, I lived in Texas for a year, and where my son went there, you would have thought fucking Chuck Norris was teaching him, dude. This dude was serious and like didn't fuck around. And my son was little, like 2 or 3 years old. And it was very much a traditional martial arts like type school. But some of these places are just fucking rackets. And
I don't believe in that stuff.
Yeah.
Like, one thing, so just using this as an example, I don't own Catharo or anything, but one thing that's cool about them is when you sign up, like there is an initiation fee, which is like get you set up in the system and everything, but we will never charge you again. I say we, I don't own it. But what that includes is like literally over the years, every time you get promoted, we buy your belt or they buy your belt.
oh, that's sick.
Like it's given to you. There's no charges. There's no testing fees. Like you earned it, and it's a gym expense. So, like when I got my black belt, like he gave me a custom black belt. My name's embroidered in it. Everything. Like he paid for that. He gave me I guess it'd be a hatchet.
Nice.
Now that half-face blades, you know, I gotta.
Yeah, we gotta talk
switch
about
over.
that, dude. I got so much to talk to you about, man. This is
No,
the
we
tip
can
of the
go.
iceberg.
I got
man.
nothing today.
Okay.
But yeah, like those are gym expenses, and that just like shows that they care. I don't want to hate on all of them, but there is a ton of martial arts gyms that it's a money industry. It's a burn and turn.
Especially with kids, I think.
It is.
Yeah.
So it's the same for us, and kids progress way faster than adults. At my gym, like your kid's belt is our expense or the gym's expense.
Yeah.
Which is cool. I appreciate that. Even though I don't have kids, like I appreciate that because you already pay a membership, and then if we're like, oh, well, don't you want
We need
little
another
Timmy to be a green
You feel
belt?
like you're getting
and,
nickeled and dimed as a parent,
Yeah.
right? Like, oh, we need an extra $20 for this or whatever. It's like for football and all these other sports organizations, soccer, whatever. It's just like this is what it costs,
Yeah.
and then that's for the season, right? So you know what you're getting into.
Oh, yeah,
And
that's
for me, it wasn't even so much about the nickel and diming. Like if my kid legitimately earned a belt, I'm okay with paying for that $60 or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Whatever you charge. But I want to know that he legitimately earned it. I don't want to just, and I feel like with jiu-jitsu, and especially if they're affiliated with somebody that, you know, like Brazilian top team or American top team or an affiliated school
Legit
sometimes.
one.
Yeah. There's a structure to it. And to become, if somebody's listening to this that's never even heard of jiu-jitsu, which is pretty uncommon, but I still think that there's a good majority of people that haven't stepped foot into a jiu-jitsu school of any sort, right?
Yeah.
It's a commitment, man. Like you're not just getting belts. There's basically 5 different belts that you can go through, and to become a black belt, you're looking at probably a minimum of like 8 years at the earliest if you're somebody that trains like fucking every day. And
8 years, you still have to be a phenom. I feel like.
Exactly.
Well,
I mean,
maybe
like
not
that's,
a phenom, but
that's
like
the
you gotta
fastest you'd probably get it, right? Like how
Yeah.
long did it take you to be black belt?
I was just gonna say, you ready for this?
Yeah.
16.
Okay.
I could be a doctor.
Yeah.
But a lot of it was, so I was a brown belt for I think 7 years. I had coaches come in and out. I never switched gyms, but different coaches would come in, they would leave, they'd fall out, this and that. And each time you get a new coach, you know, obviously they have a different system, different, like, so it meant a ton to me when I got mine. So my coach is Steve Hordinsky. After this, I'd love to talk to you and get him on here. Like he was in the Navy,
absolutely.
everything. Like he's been doing jiu-jitsu he's got some back in like the gym battle days, like
Really?
yeah.
That's awesome.
He would love to come down here. And great dude. But it meant a lot for me to get it from him because he's legit. Like I want to say he's a 3rd degree black belt so we're under Kaiki, who was Hickson's first black belt.
Nice.
So it's kind of like with jiu-jitsu,
Jeremy's
there's like
got him
about
pulled
that.
up here. That's awesome.
Yeah, with jiu-jitsu, he's a young guy too. It's about lineage too. But
oh yeah.
So he didn't just give me a black belt based on like performance and everything else. One thing I had to do And I'm not going to lie, if I'm being dead honest, I was like, come on, man. Like, are you serious? He's like, I want to black belt you, but part of my requirements, so he follows Hickson's requirements. He's like, you have to know the Gracie self-defense system. So I spent 6 months going on Sunday and training with him and another group of like brown belts to learn it. And I tried to cop out at first. I was like, dude, I've been fighting the best in the world for 17 years. I was like, does that count for self-defense? And he's like, it's not for you. It's so you could teach other people. Because a lot of people have the misconception about being a black belt too. Like, it's a give and take. Like, there's black belts out there that know a ton. And they're older or whatnot. So, yeah, like a guy coming off a D1 college can walk in the gym and maybe like hold you down. You can't submit him and everything, and you're 50 years old. But like, it's what can you teach? Can you teach the moves? Right. Can you instruct people? Which is really, I learned along the way, like that's more of what a black belt is. Now, when you're a black belt, you shouldn't be getting run over by the average person at all. You got to have some skill. But there is, because I mean, I've trained with like 70-year-olds. And when I was like a blue belt, I'm like, they're black belt. Like, they can't get me. Fine. Yeah. I'm like, but he's 70.
Well, I mean, it's the same. Like, not to say that anybody's inferior, but like, there's guys that I roll against that are 120 pounds. You know, it's not always big guys, right? You're not always matched up. And I love that too. Sometimes it's a female. Yeah. Right? So, I mean, you got to, there's a little bit of give and take there, right? Like, obviously, I'm not going to go 100% on somebody. I'm going to feel it out. But if I get caught in a bad position, I'm going to go 100%.
Yeah. Hey, it's survival.
And I have, dude. And, you know, going back to some of the mutual friends that we have, and like from the SEAL community, we were kind of talking before the podcast started.
Yeah.
With those guys, I've learned, like, and some of those special operators, you never judge a book by its cover. And especially nowadays, like going into a bar, you don't know who fucking trains at, you know, a Gracie school or 10th Planet or fucking whatever, dude. You might get caught real quick. And I've had little guys catch me at jiu-jitsu.
Better check those ears real quick.
Oh, dude.
If you see somebody with cauliflower ear at a bar, probably stop.
You might
and you don't do anything. Yeah, no, it's the same kind of thing. I say it with fighting, man, because the thing is like I've trained with world champions. I've trained with UFC champions, boxing champions, everything. And they don't win every round. If they did, they're at the wrong spot, right? But there's people that want to like build themselves off that and be like, oh, you know, why?
So basically testing you when you're in the gym, right? Like,
yeah.
It's
like if you're doing jiu-jitsu, there's people that want to go tell everybody like, oh, well, he's in the UFC, but I submitted him.
Yeah, but there's a difference between training and actually stepping into that octagon, I'm sure, right? Like when I can't speak for it, but I would imagine there's a big difference between
100%
training and fucking actually go time. And you guys aren't, I mean, anybody knows, I don't think, okay, well, I'm going to say this. Going into jiu-jitsu, it always starts with, for us, it's a warm-up. Then we do some drilling, some pretty rigorous drilling. I mean, the coaches are adamant about that you keep moving, right? Like, what are you guys fucking doing? We're not here to hang out, you know, like type of thing, which I love.
Yeah.
Shout out Dave. But, you know, at the end of it, you start and you're like, okay, let's start 50% or whatever. Like, don't kill each other, right? You're not trying to hurt your training partners, right? So that's kind of part of it. And yeah, every once in a while, it gets turned up to 100 or 110. It's going to happen, right? It's competitive. But for the most part, it's a totally different vibe in a gym, right? Especially when you're just training. Yeah.
And especially because I used to go, so for Chris Weidman's training camps, I would go out to Long Island, stay with him and train. And because I'm left-handed, or I fight left-handed. I'm right-handed, but I fight southpaw.
Which is crazy. That was something I wanted to ask you about.
But he fought Anderson, Machida, the list goes on. They're southpaws, Rockhold. So every time he fought a lefty, like he'd bring me out there, we'd spar. And we used to go to Matt Serra's gym, which shout out to Matt Serra. I love that guy.
I love that guy too, dude, man. Like, I don't know him personally, but like just his lore.
You want to talk about a gym full of killers. Like
I could imagine.
absolute like murderers at jiu-jitsu. And I mean, you walk in and there's like old looking dudes that are just like kind of old, heavier set, everything. And the next thing you know, they're like laying on their back, pulling their foot in front of your face while you're on top. And you're like, how are you this flexible? And the first time I went,
Like Joey Diaz or something.
Shout out to him too. I love that guy.
I love Joey too. I actually caught you on his.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah.
We send him fit soda and stuff all the time. I've known him for
cool.
a bit. But so it's the most deceiving, humbling thing ever. Cause I, fighting in the UFC, I'm fighting top level guys, everything. And I remember the first time I went to Sarah's gym, Weidman, we're leaving, we're getting in his car. And he's like, how'd you do? And I was like, I got fucking murdered by everybody, like submitted. And he's like, he's like, they're good here. He's like, don't worry about it though. He's like, just think about it. All these guys do are jiu-jitsu all day long. He's like, most of those guys are Wall Street guys. He's like, they go to Henzo's in the morning, Sarah's at night. He goes, they work during the day, but they do jiu-jitsu in the morning, jiu-jitsu at night. I even asked the guy there, I'm like, oh, what belt are you? He's like, oh, black belt. And I was like, oh, no shit. How long you been doing jiu-jitsu? And he's like, I started in 93. And like, yeah. And like, dude, they would wipe the floor with me.
Yeah. Well, it's crazy though, because me traveling around a little bit for what I do try to do some drop-ins so I can stay fresh, right? Because if I'm gone for 3 weeks, it's like, you might as well fucking start over again, dude.
Yeah. I train everywhere I go.
Yeah. So like dropping into some of these different gyms, you'll see different levels. Like I've dropped into some gyms before where, and nothing against anybody, everybody's different, but like I'm rolling against some brown belts or purple belts and I'm schooling them and I'm a white belt.
Yeah.
And they accuse me of like sandbagging almost. Like, how are you still a white belt?
You're like, I didn't belt myself.
Yeah. And, but anyways, and then I've gone into some other spots where the white belts are just fucking murderers,
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I was getting at is people ask me these kind of things all the time because I've met guys in the gym that have never competed. And going back to train with world champions and stuff, like Weidman has people. I'm sure Khabib has people. I know Stipe real well. He has people like that you've never heard of that will give him the roughest rounds, or like it's a give and take. They don't win every round. And you're not meant to, but the fact is being able to put it together that night and in front of people is a whole different.
I can't imagine the nerves like just going into it and like the walkout and the whole just.
You were talking about operators and stuff. It's kind of like you're a professional shooter at the range, but can you do it when somebody's shooting at you?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that's kind of where I was going.
If you take competition shooters and be like, have you ever been shot at? No, but I'm a pretty good shot.
Same with bow hunting, right? Like you can stand on polished concrete and throw arrows at, you know.
Pressure breaks everything.
Yeah.
Pressure makes diamonds. It'll break everything, and it's who can deal with that. So then people get like a false sense of security, It's the same with people that just do jiu-jitsu and they're like, oh, I'm the baddest dude ever. And it's like, but then you run into somebody like, okay, I'm a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but I've kickboxed with the best in the world. I fought MMA. Like, what are you going to do if you can't submit me and we get in a bar fight? You're walking around thinking because you do jiu-jitsu and you're good at it, that you're the best. Like, you might be better at jiu-jitsu, but can you get me there? Am I good enough to defend all your stuff and then still elbow you and this and that? Like, it's just a chess match. So when people have that false sense of security, even like I said, Stipe before, he's a good friend of mine. He was considered the baddest man on the planet. Still one of them.
Still is one of them, right? About to fight John Jones again, right?
You'll never see him walk around town like that. You won't see him pick fights with people.
Yeah.
You won't see him like puff his chest.
Well, that's what I found about a lot of you guys that I've had in and stuff like that are at that top level of MMA fighters and stuff. It's like I enjoy hanging out with you guys more than anybody, and operators and stuff like that. And that's kind of what I've based my guest list around, is like people that aren't going to bullshit me.
Yeah.
Like, I love that. There's no bullshit. And like, you guys are some of the most laid back, funnest people to be around.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that you could fucking turn it on, but I get that same sort of, and another reason I go to jiu-jitsu is I get that same sort of humbleization. I feel like a fucking piece of shit every time I leave there. I'm like, God, I suck so bad at this. Like I can't believe I got worked, by so and so or whatever. And it's just, any of your outside problems, like it happened to me here the other day. I had some high school kids like fucking tear around me and like flipping me off and shit. I was like, oh God, do I want to get out of the car? But luckily I went to jiu-jitsu that day. So it wasn't as like, I don't know. I was just more like, whatever.
I think, you know, tons of people will disagree, but I think everybody should do some kind of sport like that. It's very humbling. You learn a ton of things that translate to real life. You learn like hard work. You learn like you're not going to break. I think nowadays the world is turning to more of people think we're made of glass. You know, even with parenting, like humans are resilient. You know, I get it. You want to protect your kids. You want to like make sure they have the best and everything, but you're not exactly protecting them by not letting them experience some hardships and stuff because they grow off of that. We did, you
100%.
know. And I could see, I'm not a parent, but I could see like you want to like shelter them from everything. But
it's hard. It's a hard balance, especially in this world. But then I could think back about like how I grew up a little bit, you know, and it was kind of like the school of hard knocks, like fucking sack up.
And that's what
and
made you
do
the man
something
you are.
right. Yeah. So it's like I think you got to go back to that. I think it's also kind of how you're raised. Obviously, I mean, I was abused as a kid too, not sexually, thank God, but like I was hit, you know, like fucking I got knocked the fuck out and there was domestic violence in my house and stuff like that. And I don't ever want that to be around my kids, right?
Yeah, I
like,
think that there's levels to
so
it.
I'm not saying like take it all, right? But I think that also made me a protector and be a person that wanted to learn how to fight and protect myself and protect my family more than anything. Not even myself. It was like that was the main reason why I wrestled, and that's why I hit hard in football. It was like I want to learn how to knock somebody the fuck out in case I had to, and
yeah,
I did have to use it at home. That's the fucking sad part. When you went home, I had to use some of that, you know, and I wanted to get bigger and I wanted to get faster and stronger so I could protect my mom, you know, like that's fucked up. That's not a good way to grow up. But also I think that now that my kids are growing up with two parents, we keep any sort of violence, like there might be an argument here or there. That shit's going to happen, but outside of that, there's no like any sort of violence, even threats, right? Like around. So they're growing up in the perfect environment and we do everything that we can to support them in what they want to do.
Yeah.
But there's also like a balance of like, okay, now you actually need to do this. Or I think that's why I'm pursuing getting my kid back into hunting. I think that there's such a huge value in the adversity that you face in the wilderness, big game hunting. I mean,
it sucks.
If you're backcountry bow hunting, I'm not talking about like sitting around the campfire drinking beer. That's fucking great too.
Yeah.
There's some life lessons there too. Yeah. There's a big difference. But if you're actually like going after the animals, trying to call them in, you're covered in their own piss because you're spraying it on you because you bought it at the store. Like,
yeah,
you're hiking, that stuff's in your eyes. You're tired. You're up before the sun gets up. You're coming back to camp before the sun gets down. And then you got to get up the next day and do it all over again if you want to have success. Then the work begins when you actually do accomplish your goal. Then you're like, holy shit, here we go.
You get that high and then you're like, now we got to pack it out.
It's a whole nother level, right? And I think that there's some adversity that comes with that. And I think it also puts an appreciation on just life in general. Like, it's fleet. It could be here 1 minute and gone the next, right? Yeah. Especially when you see like something that's 600 pounds that's majestic and sounds like a fucking dinosaur and has antlers growing out of its head, and just like there's something about that.
Well, it's a primitive thing, but it also gives you an appreciation for like life. You know, I don't know any hunters that are just like, I just want to kill everything. Like, none of them are just like, yeah, you're excited when you get a kill, but you're not just like, yeah, I just want to slaughter things. Like, yeah, you're pumped. And then most hunters, I like to think, at least, like, I don't hunt things that I won't eat.
I'm the same way.
And I think that you get more of an appreciation because you had to put in the work for it. You didn't just go to the grocery store and buy it. And aside from that, that animal didn't grow up in a farm. It wasn't, take chickens, for example. Not that I go hunt chickens, but or cow, whatever. You like beef, I like elk. Those cows live in pens. Like if you go to some of those, they're like,
oh god,
they're
we've all
shoulder
been
to
out
shoulder,
to Greeley,
yeah, like,
right? And like
and
some
like
of
they
these
don't
spots.
live an actual life. So when people shit on hunting, I'm like, unless you're completely vegan and like, don't you dare have leather in your car and all these other things that I can list off that you
That's
probably
so true.
have.
It's so true.
Your shoes, everything. Like you better be wearing Toms and all this like before you come at me, because
A Whole Foods wardrobe.
the animal that I killed lived a wild life, like a better life. Didn't know what happened, most likely, or if it wasn't clean, then it was quick. It didn't live in a pen. It wasn't, miserable, being shot up with antibiotics, all these other things. And I don't think people think that through. They're just like, well, hunting's bad. I just go to the store and buy it.
Yeah.
Like you're eating an inbred, penned up animal
That's shot full of hormones or whatever else. I
Yeah.
mean, there are options to buy beef and stuff in some other routes. Like I don't want to shit on the industry because I think that industry does get shit on a lot.
Yeah.
And I think that the huge level factory farming, there's only one way to feed all the fucking people we have here. Like, so obviously it's going to be based on how much you go about sourcing your food. But I think like people are kind of coming back to like sourcing your own food, whether it's through a third party or not, is super fucking important. Like, the biggest way to vote is with your dollar, right? Like,
Yeah.
so if you're against factory farming, don't walk into the big chain grocery store and go buy the fucking spray painted steak that's bright red and beet juice, right? And whatever other chemicals that they have to keep it on the shelf as long as they possibly can. Like go to some of these third parties that have, a ranch to doorstep mentality that'll ship it to you or something like that. Like Colorado Craft Beef is right here.
Yeah,
They're
you can
just
join
in Akron.
farms,
They're
all that
fucking.
stuff.
There's all kinds of these great people out there that are still doing the agricultural work and in a humane way as possible, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But let's just put it in perspective. If you want to source your own meat firsthand, there's two ways to do it. It's either raise a cow, raise a pet,
Yeah.
and then kill it.
And then old yeller it.
Yeah, exactly. Or go out and hunt. I mean, if you're going to eat meat, I think for me, the hunting aspect, that's the main reason I do it. I'm not out chasing 380 class bulls. If there's one that walks in front of me during hunting season, sure shit, it's getting an arrow in it if I'm within the legal limit. And I think that that's another point to bring up too, is I think it's misconstrued from non-hunters that people are out there just killing these animals and not actually eating them or utilizing most of the parts or whatever, right? Like they think it's all about like holding up the head and taking that photo or having it mounted on your wall. That is, some guys choose to do that. Some guys don't. But it is against the law in the state of Colorado and many other states that if you shoot an animal or during hunting season, part of that, your license requirement is you have to utilize that meat. You can't dispose of it. You can't throw it away.
Yeah.
You have to basically take it home to consume. You have to either have it processed or processed yourself.
Yeah,
you can't leave it out there in the forest and cut the head off and take the trophy out, right? You're required to take almost the entire animal out, like the heavy shit, all the meat.
Yeah. Nor do I know any personally or have ever heard of anybody that knows of anybody that does that. Just like,
exactly.
I just killed it. Like,
yeah.
It, yeah, I mean, a lot of people also don't realize that hunting pays for more conservation than anybody else, more than PETA, any of that shit. Like, you can get down a rabbit hole on PETA too. Like, they're not, just like a lot of other things in the world, they're not exactly what they say. Hunting tags, all of that pays for conservation. It pays for like deforestation.
It pays for much more than just actually benefiting hunters. It actually benefits more people outside of hunting than actual hunters, I think.
Yeah. It's nuts. I think the world's gone a little crazy, We were talking about protecting your kids and everything, and I don't even want to turn this like a totally bad way, but if you take the term toxic masculinity that's gone around forever, and I think
we get nailed with it all the time. Like I do personally. Like people fucking hate me, but
I think
whatever.
We're actually lacking it.
I agree. I feel like it's being stifled. Like I feel because I'm getting hit with all these messages, sometimes I feel bad about talking about certain things, and I shouldn't feel that fucking way. So fuck all of you.
I'll talk about it then. You can hit me up. I think we're like lacking masculinity though, because nowadays you got like all these kids, and I'm not saying that everybody has to be like me and like fight and do this, but like part of being masculine is, let's reframe this. So there's a ton of people. This is what gives the common misconception. There's a bunch of meatheads out there that are douchebags that talk about like, I'm an alpha, this and that, and masculine. And they're not the ones, because like masculinity means a whole nother thing. It's like being able to like provide, protect, take care, be humble, a lot of other things. And I think we're lacking a lot of that. And I think that's through like fathers and stuff of children. And there's so many which ways you could go with this, but
I think it's super important. I know that like Tim Kennedy's got a program going right now. I don't know if you're familiar with him.
Yeah, I know Tim.
I don't know him personally, but I know that they've started a program that's specifically about like the world that we live in now. Whether you're a deadbeat dad or not, dads just aren't around, right? Like you're a provider still. So like, even though women are working now, there's not two parents in the home, but like for sure in 90% of homes, the dad is absent way more than the mom is. Yeah. Regardless, no matter what their careers are, it's like, that's just kind of the pecking order. Right. And also kids aren't required. Like when I grew up, where I learned growing up without a dad and a single mom, where I learned, I'm going to get in there too. Thanks. Where I learned to be a man, or toxic masculinity, or how to be a provider, or whatever you want to fucking call it, was from some excellent father figures, even though they weren't my dad. So I had my grandfather and uncles that were awesome. And my youngest uncles, we're only 10 years apart. So it's almost like having an older sibling, you know, like he's still a fucking badass, you know?
Yeah. And sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. But anyways, without some sort of influence there, you're just kind of on your own. And if you're growing up in today's age, then you might as well have TikTok raise you, or Instagram, or
an algorithm raises kids.
We know how poisonous that is, you know, like that's not good for anybody, even adults. Yeah. So imagine what it does to a kid's brain, you know, like.
Can I say, do you know who Alan Belcher is?
I don't know. Enlighten me.
He was a UFC fighter. He was, he's the bare knuckle heavyweight champion now, but he was.
Maybe I do know who it is.
He's a stud of a UFC fighter. Fought Belcher or Bisbing and he had a bunch of big fights.
I know exactly who this guy is. Yeah.
So I had him on my podcast.
I'm horrible with names, dude.
I had him on my podcast recently, and he said one of the coolest things ever. He was like, people don't realize that if you're not parenting, the algorithm is raising your children now.
100%.
And he was like, I watch, like, he's like, I don't restrict them and stuff, but I don't let them be on it all the time. He's like, because if I'm absent as a father, he's like, my kids will watch TikTok, Instagram, and everything, and the more that they look at those, the algorithm catches on for all of us. And he's like, the algorithm will raise your children. And I never thought about it that way, but it was a really cool saying. So I just wanted to shout that out and repeat that.
That's awesome. And that's basically Tim Kennedy's philosophy. He's starting a men's group to like encourage young dads, right? Because there's a ton of people that are out there that are new to having kids, right? And they're trying to figure it out. And they have the social interaction that they got to keep up with now. They have their jobs. They have always being connected to some sort of phone or something, whether it's email or whatever. And there's so many distractions in life, right? Like you can watch whatever you want on demand. You can go on YouTube. I can go back and watch your fights on Fight Pass. You know, you can spend as much time on one subject, which is super awesome in some facets, but there's so many distractions that I feel like these households are just living separate lives, man. Like they're all locked into their own devices, whether it's a phone, a tablet, whatever. And that's awesome, right? Like I like to listen to audiobooks. I like to listen to podcasts. I don't really watch TV. So like some of the things that they're implementing, and this is something I've been doing for a while in my home, is like if we're all home and gonna eat dinner, or even if it's 2 or 3 of us, right? Because we're all going different directions. My philosophy is keep your kids busy in some sort of sport, something, help them pursue their stuff. But if we're at home and we're going to eat dinner, let's not do it in front of the TV. Let's actually just eat dinner. Number one,
Have a
I think that you
conversation
don't
like
realize
this.
how much you're consuming when you're sitting there just like, it's just dopamine hit after dopamine
Yeah.
hit when you're sitting there like, of course you're going to have 2 or 3 plates if you're waiting to watch Chris Camozzi fight on the next, TUF challenge or whatever it is. But I think really just taking the time and then also I call it shelving the phone. Like I put it on do not disturb and put it on top of the refrigerator. So I physically have to like go get it to check it. And if the world's blown up, it's kind of cool now that with technology, you can set certain people to ring through some of those do not disturb things. It's like,
Yeah. That's why, so when you and I were going back and forth about doing this, it took me so long sometimes to get back to you.
dude,
Well, part of what I do is, now sometimes I'm on my phone or computer at home, but once I'm done, I put it on do not disturb. I put it face down on the charger, like in my room or whatever. It's not even near me. So I'm not sitting there like, even if my girlfriend and I are watching a movie and she goes to the bathroom, I'm not like on my phone. My phone's not even near me. I decide a point in the day where I'm done. There might be a time I take the dog out and the dog's like running around the park and I look at my phone, but for the most part, like I've started doing this last year actually more, like separation times, because I used to sleep with it next to me, this and that. I love the like do not disturb thing, and sometimes I forget to turn it back on and the next day, and I'm like,
Nothing
oh, shit,
wrong
I
with
missed
that.
10 calls and I'm at work and I'm like,
I gotta
wait.
say though, as much as you're hard on yourself about it, you are very responsive and the
Oh, really?
communication's been great for some of the top level athletes that I deal with and some of these other people. It's like hit or miss, dude. Like I've had full staff here and everything, like ready to do a podcast, and they're like, "Sorry, I can't make it."
That sucks.
Like
Can I
It's part-
rewind a minute
Yeah.
too? Because before the hate messages come in, I want to rephrase,
Yeah.
not rephrase, but going back to the masculinity thing, because I think this gets missed because a lot of people think there's become a time where everybody thinks masculinity is just like tough and hunt, shoot, do all this. Like you can be an engineer, you can be a computer guy, but still be masculine, right? Like, just by having morals, like integrity, stuff like that. I'm not saying that you have to be like lifting weights and do this and that. Like, is that better for you working out? Yeah. But like some people are not genetically gifted, right? Like I've met people that others would call like a computer nerd, but you can still be masculine in your own way. I'm not saying you have to be like a meathead and this and that.
no,
And everything that I've learned about that, which is funny, is like my dad wasn't around growing up. Like everything I learned about being a man was from my mom. And people are always surprised to hear that. Like I didn't grow up with like the dad that was like at football games, like fuck him up, like smash him. Like my mom is the one that taught me, like, if you see a woman walking up to a door, open that door. If you're walking in and a woman's behind you, like hold it. Just like chivalrous things.
be a gentleman.
Other
right?
things
Like
and,
that's one thing that my mom taught me too is be a gentleman.
Yeah, my mom was also the one that would like whoop my ass as a kid too, like the wooden spoon. And even to this day, it's just like it was ingrained in me like forever. Like, don't ever, raise your voice. Don't hit women. This and that. Like it wasn't from seeing my parents do it. My mom was like, if you ever do, like I'll kill you. My mom will still tell me that now.
Yeah.
She knows I fight like some of the toughest guys in the world. My mom's like, if anything like that ever happened, I would fuck you up.
God, I'm so fortunate, like with the background that I grew up in and like seeing all that abuse against my mom, that
Yeah.
luckily it was my stepdads that were doing it, which is even more fucked up, right?
Yeah.
So there was that disconnection, but then also I had great influences that like grandfathers and uncles that didn't stand for that shit. And it was like, you respect a woman and like,
Yeah.
you should basically not worship them, but you should treat them at a higher level. Like you should have a higher respect for them and
yourself.
Yeah.
I think that's what I'm not always the best at verbalizing, but like part of like a masculinity thing is also standing up for yourself. That doesn't mean physically always, like maybe your boss rides you all the time, or maybe it's not your boss. People like walk all over you. There's a time, and it doesn't have to be in a loud way or anything, but you just say no. And like,
100%, yeah.
people respect people that respect themselves and stand up for themselves. And I think a lot of that is getting lost. Everybody just falls into the group Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Nowadays, like, there's a narrative, everybody just falls in. Nobody ever just questions. Nobody ever says, no, I don't agree with that, because that puts you as an outlier. But being able to stand up for what you believe in is, whether you're a woman or not, like, that's a masculine thing. I mean, God. Here comes some other hate. I'm digging the hole here.
I
Listen,
get what
I'm all
you're
pro
saying,
women,
though.
like, you be CEOs, everything.
Yeah.
Like, my girl is a savage, right? Like, I learned so much from her. She's a business savage.
She's
like,
a bombshell, man.
yeah, she is. And she's also, like, super intelligent. I root for her in everything, like, run companies, do this, do that. So rewind that. I'm not saying, like,
No,
I'm
we
not
can
saying
get
women
ourselves
have
in
to be
trouble,
masculine,
but
but I mean, it's just like a self-respect thing too that I think that society is losing. Is everybody's just so quick to just agree and be like, I don't want to stand out.
yeah.
And I think that is almost more what we're missing than anything. We need people to, like, stand up for what's
It's like
right,
people
have
are walking
morals.
on eggshells, like, and that's one thing I love about this podcast and having guys like you in, or females, whatever, is just being able to have a real conversation where there's no distractions, one, and two, to genuinely get out what you feel and have a platform to do it on. Like,
Yeah,
I think
I haven't
it's
talked
so
about a lot of this, but
important, man.
I think, yeah, it's just integrity too. We are losing integrity as individuals, which is making the group fall in line. Like, have some integrity. If you disagree or you question something, question it. Everything in science is literally built off questions. The scientific
And
method.
you don't have to be right.
Yeah, if you look at the scientific method is question, question, question until it can't be proved, or until it can be completely proven and it can't be questioned.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it becomes a fact. But people don't want to question things anymore because they don't want to stand out. They don't want the ridicule, this and that. Like, you should ask questions. If I'm a boss, or when I coach people at the gym and stuff, I don't get mad if you question what I'm showing. I actually prefer it because it means you're paying attention, one, and you're thinking outside the box. I'm not always right. I've had students ask me a question and be like, no, you are right. Like, that'll work. And I've been doing this 17 years and I changed it after that. Because just because I learned it a way and then I teach it that way, it doesn't have to continue that way. Like, there's always a new way. So when people question things,
I
it's
think
a
being
good
receptive to that too is a leader, right? Like, I think that, like, not my way or the highway type of mentality, right? Like, that's super important. I think that's part of being a good leader, whether you're in your household or not. And I know we're going super deep here, but it's just actually listening. And that's what's made me a good podcaster. Like, when I first started this, dude, I fucking sucked so bad. Like, don't go listen to episode 1. Please do not.
Hey, same with mine.
Yeah. I mean, go listen for the people that I've had on, but don't critique me, because I was just so bad at interrupting, rambling, having to fill dead air. It's okay to have a silent moment on the mic. I still find myself having trouble with that, you know, but
I do too.
But really, it's just, I think listening to people is part of being a good leader, man, or being a good host or whatever, right? It's just genuinely listen. That's all you got to fucking do.
Yeah.
It's not that hard.
Honestly, that's actually a reason why I like Joe Rogan's podcast. And I know that there's plenty of people that hate him and everything. But one thing that he's great at is interviewing, because if he doesn't agree and, like, he's sitting here in, like, an intimate situation like this, like, face to face, he's grilled people before. I mean, is he always right? No. But how many people in our media actually ask real questions anymore? They're all scripted, fed questions, and he'll never be perfect. And I'm not saying that he's just, like, end all say all, but, like, people should ask more questions. If anybody has a problem with you asking questions, then they're probably worried about what they're teaching you or telling you. Because if I know I'm right, question me all day and I will counter those questions with facts. And if you run out of questions, then, like, we should be good.
Yeah.
If you question me and I can't answer it, it's going to make me think about it more, which will make us progress more.
And it's kind of funny. Going back to, like, vetting guests and stuff. Like, the premise of this was based, or I guess the production premise of this was definitely based around Rogan. Like,
Yeah.
he's the man, dude. Like, he is the professional in our world of podcasting or whatever it is, you know? Like,
Yeah.
he's fucking amazing. He's great at what he does.
It'll never be perfect.
Right. And I think there's more people that like him than probably don't. It seems like, you know, like I think that depends on what group you fall into. But if you're falling into a group, I think you can agree with things on both sides of a podcast. Like we have some listeners that I've heard from personally that say, you know, I don't always agree with the people that you have on or what they say or your political values, but I enjoy listening to it.
Yeah.
For that opinion or whatever, right? Like sometimes we get thank yous from that, and it's completely from left park, like people that I wouldn't even expect.
Shout out to them, because I respect that. Because have you ever read the Book of Five Rings and all this stuff?
Oh, it's awesome, yeah.
Part of what people, maybe I sound like I'm ranting, and I'm not perfect either.
We're going down some rabbit holes.
Yeah.
As soon as we open this bottle of whiskey, geez, here we go.
It's helping my throat. It's helping my throat.
You sound much better, dude.
I actually do sound more clear. Shout out to Breckenridge Whiskey.
Yeah.
But if you read that book, like, God, I don't even want to butcher his name because I've read the book a bunch of times. Miyato Musashi. I know it's Musashi, but, and I talked about this on my podcast before, is like, know your enemy. So one thing we don't do, if you just take the most polarizing thing right now, politics, they don't listen to the other side. It's just rabble, 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 I'm right. Rabble, 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 I'm right. But really, so take me for instance, like with fights, I'll watch my opponent. I'll learn about them. I watch interviews they do. I see how they talk. I do a lot of things. Now, I don't like dwell on it, but I research them. I think that people get so divided, they don't want to hear the other side. And they also don't want to admit if, like, okay, that is a good point. You know, we were talking about Colorado earlier, and I was saying, like, we have guns and weed kind of thing. That's how I used to explain it to people. We're kind of like neutral, or used to be, maybe still a little bit. But if you know the other side, or if you're so hard here and you're like, I'm right, you should study your opponent. You should know what they're talking about, why. You should actually like interview. Why? Why do you think
take it a step
that?
further? It doesn't have to be an opponent. Why can't you just have a fucking conversation? Like
It doesn't. Yeah, it just.
you know what I mean? Like why is it so divided? Like why can't you just listen to somebody, and then hopefully get a chance to rebuttal how you feel about it, or maybe it'll change your opinion, and maybe it won't. Maybe it'll solidify your opinion. That's even better, right? Like to know that you're right. Like okay.
And disagreeing doesn't mean you have to hate each other.
Exactly.
I've got tons of friends that like we disagree on a lot of things, but we're friends, and like we don't let that come between us. But like I'll hear you out. You can have a respectful conversation about things, and it will make you better. You might still not agree, but you don't have to hate them. And you take what they say and then process it, and then maybe even like research what they said. Make sure you're not always right. I've been proven wrong a ton of times.
You got to be careful where you're getting your information these days too, because you can literally go find anything you want to hear, whether it's a medical fucking thing. Like the worst thing to do is this, like, and my wife's family is really, God, I shouldn't say that. Some of my my in-laws.
I'm gonna bookmark this part. Right.
It's only because
Let me
mine
jot
are
this
so
down.
ingrained Colorado deep. I think I might be the only person in my side of the family that knows how to Google and shit. But on her side, they're very much like, if there's a medical condition or something, they're like looking it up right away. Like,
they're like, you have cancer.
God, yeah, you're fucked, dude. You're about to die. You know,
That paper cut,
you better
you
go
have
to
cancer.
the emergency room. And but yeah, it's I think you can find any information that you're looking for these days to solidify your own opinions. Like, so you got to be careful with that. Like, I think that you really have to try to figure it out and
It's the algorithm.
yeah, it is the algorithm.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I'm big on Reddit.
Okay.
And so, like, what I do on Reddit is same thing. So if I read something and I'm like, wow, like, because I'm
But
like,
those are like normal people making tweets or statements or blogs or whatever.
or people
right?
post articles in forums and stuff. And
Right.
what I do is, like, if I read something from, I don't know, Fox News or whatever, I'll be like, oh, wow. But then I'll go read the opposing side. And then I'm like, well, if those are complete opposites, someone's wrong here or they're both wrong. You got to be able to, like, analyze things, right? It's the same if you're out, like, this might not be a good analogy, but I've been out hunting before and, like, semi-lost. Did you have Dustin Jacoby on here?
I did, yeah.
Yeah,
And
okay.
I got to ask you about that. Dude, we're going to go for a minute here. Are you
Yeah.
okay with
Oh,
it
yeah.
on time? Okay.
Him and I kind of got lost one day hunting. It was both of our first time. It was both
That's
of our,
awesome. You guys hunted together?
Oh yeah, we've been friends forever, man.
That's rad.
He got back into, actually his first elk ever was with me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he almost killed me.
He's told that story on here, actually.
He told you he almost killed me?
Well, I don't know about that. I'd have to go back and listen to it, dude. I'm sorry, Dustin.
But there was a time we were both, I don't know, this probably won't be the best analogy, but we were lost. It was like daytime. We were leaving that day. Him and I weren't familiar with the area. The guys that were familiar with the area, we like left them in the group. And we got to like, it had been all day. We were like, fuck, I don't know. Is it that way? Is it that way? And I was like, I think it's this way. He's like, I think it's that way. But then we just started discussing like, why do you think it's that way? This and that. Like, we weren't fighting about it. We both wanted to be right. We were both looking for the same goal.
Trying to solve the problem, right?
Yeah, we both had conflicting things, and it's like literally a fork in this like trail in the woods in the middle of fucking nowhere. At least it was daylight, you know, we weren't like super lost, but then we just literally started discussing like, well, are you sure? But why do you think it's that way? And I'm sharing. And yeah, we weren't arguing anything like that. It was just like,
but
here's
there's a
why.
fork in the road, right?
Yeah. And it was here's why. And like it ended up fine. And I don't remember who was right. We didn't give a shit who was right. Once we got back, part of it was we were hurrying because we're like, man, we're not trying to stay another night and don't want to be lost in the middle of nowhere too. But it's just things like that. Like that's a small thing, but can translate to life.
Oh, 100%. And I think that that's why it's good to have those experiences out there. I think for me personally, with it, when it comes to news or media outlets or something like that, I really appreciate people and news organizations. And this can be biased too. You got to fact check these people. You never know whatever, but something that just states the facts. You know, an F-22 is scrambled to go to the Canadian border.
Yeah.
Boom. That's all I need to hear, dude. I don't need to hear your opinion of China or Russia nuclear, whatever. Like, I don't need any of that bullshit. I just want the facts. Like, what happened
That's a
and
measurable
why
fact.
is this a problem?
Yeah.
And then I'll come to my own conclusions. I'll create my own fear, right? Like, because believe me, all that shit is running through my head. But like, let me create that myself. Like, why are we being force-fed our own opinions? And that's why I feel like kind of this culture with toxic masculinity and, you know, BLM and I'm really chalking it up now and just like
keep going. His email is.
But I just feel like all this is you're being told how to feel and how to react, and you're not given any of the facts. So the facts are there, but you literally have to go hunt and find them for yourselves without hearing some outside influence. Like to read through that and just get the facts is so hard now. So I appreciate outlets that are literally just giving you the facts. Like, shout out to Jeremy. You might have to look this up so I don't fuck it up. But from a military standpoint on Instagram, this is an Instagram account. So who knows how credible this is. But I appreciate these guys because it's literally just the facts. It's OAF Nation, I believe. Huge account. They're a media outlet. And they're basically just giving you the facts and of what's happening around the world. I'm not saying that it's right. Some of them are headlines. Some of them are from the New York Times.
Here's a fact.
Yeah. But that's not a good
That's
example.
That's an odd one, isn't it?
Yeah.
But
And yeah, now they're on the Trump thing. But like,
I see what you're doing.
from a military standpoint,
Okay.
it's like, oh God, this is a bad example. Okay, no more.
Cut that out.
Yeah. Edit.
Well, I have another one. So there's another buddy while you're on Instagram. If you go to CTTS, I believe it's _solutions.
Okay.
So this is a buddy of mine. His name is Mike Pannone. You can look him up. You can do it all, whatever. He's one of very few people in the world that ever. Is it CTTS? Might be that new account one. That's him, but
Maybe he got booted. That's the problem with these real media outlets. They get booted.
So he does a lot of like, he trains cops, military, everything. His background is insane. It's that bottom one. Okay, so there's no underscore. Cut that out. So Mike, I don't have to give you the whole story, but he was part of Delta Force, so he's a Green Beret, all these things. So he's one of the few people, what was it? He was a Marine, then switched to the Army, became a Green Beret. I think him, Goggins, I could be wrong on this, but like he's one of very few people in the world to ever do what he does.
Multi-branch type.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then was part of Delta Force, legitimately proven. You can look it up. He lost one of his eyes over there, whatever, training at some point. He was on my podcast, told me the story. Him and I have worked together. But he not battles, but what he does, he puts out videos about a lot of police instructors and shitty shooting training. And he'll post them, people that argue with him and everything. And he's like, I've been in pretty much every combat scenario you can think of live. And these other people that are just instructors that have never been shot at, they might be at like certain police departments. He travels around the country. And that's what he'll say. He's like, how many times have you been shot at? His big thing lately has been, and I might butcher this because I'm not an expert like him, is the fact that like certain police departments teach to, if you pull up, shoot out the window while you're sitting in the car. And he's like, that will get you killed. Get out of the car. Doesn't matter. Like, yada, yada. You guys can dig through this, but it's just, him and I talk almost daily. And he's just like, man, it's just like with what you do. People that have never done it will literally argue with you and tell you that they know. And he's like, but they've never been live doing it. And I give him a lot of credit because he gets a ton of flack. But who else has been there in like all of these situations?
Oh, it's so true, man.
And he's like, you're going to argue with me like you might work for SWAT, but have you ever been in these scenarios? You just learned it away and you keep teaching it. I'm trying to like teach you a better way to do it because I know from experience. And sure enough, there's always people that are like,
experience matters, man. Like that's
life experience is worth more than college.
I agree.
I learned something a long time ago. It's kind of like a hustling, like street mentality and instincts and stuff. Actually will get you, not always, depends on your job, but you can learn a lot more things from life than you can in school. The problem with school is they tell you this is why, because I said, and that's what the people before me said. Again, questioning. When really college thesis and getting your doctorate, writing all these things, and people that discover new things go against the grain and question why. The people that just follow, like, this is what I learned, so then I'm going to teach everybody else that. And they never ask why or question any part of it.
And nobody ever questions them. Like going back to what you were talking about with you and Dustin, and just like also having some sort of camaraderie of peers, I think is super lost in today with adversity, right? Like
it could be a discussion.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a fight.
Exactly.
My girlfriend and I talk about it all the time. We don't have fights, really. We have discussions. We disagree on things. We're not perfect, but we literally never like yell at each other, fight. We like, she's the most easygoing person I've ever been with, because if I disagree, it's not like, oh, like as soon as somebody loses their cool on a disagreement, I'm like, you're questioning if you're right. Because if you know you're right, you're usually pretty calm and cool. Like, I know because I know. Go ahead, look it up. I do that all the time. I'll tell people, I'm like, Google it. I'll bet you. Yeah. You know, if I'm unsure, I won't say that. I'm like, nah, leave your phone down. We're just talking right now. Right. Anyways, give him a follow, especially, okay. I'm sure. That's awesome. I'm sure you
I'd love to have him on too. I mean,
yeah, he might be coming out here for the fight. Okay. I'm sure you have a lot of like law enforcement and stuff on here.
We've had a ton of like, not really first responders. I'd like to have more. I've been careful about that. We've had some firefighters on, like wildland firefighters specifically, because I think that's
it's a wild job.
It's a wild job,
no pun intended.
And I think that they are highly underlooked in that community. Like, there's all these foundations that take care of like actual firefighters and a lot of first responders and stuff, but they're kind of just backburnered. And these guys are literally doing it for a passion, and I feel like it's a dying breed.
Yeah.
Because they're not doing it for the pay. I can guarantee goddamn
Or the
that.
glory.
Or the glory.
If you know anything about the smoke jumpers and stuff, they're digging
my
ditches
God,
and
dude.
shit half the time.
And these guys are so badass, man. It's like having you in here or an operator. Like, these are the people that I like surrounding myself with. People with real life experiences that have faced adversity, who, I'm not saying you have to be humble, but like, just if you've checked those two boxes, you're gonna be humble in some sort of way, right? Like,
yeah. Humbleness finds greatness, you know?
Agreed. Yeah.
Anybody that's great has been humbled, and the reason they're great is because of like how they answered that, or they answered adversity in a certain way, learned from it.
Or it failed. It's okay to fail.
Yeah.
Like,
if you take Muhammad Ali, any of those people, like people that have answered adversity become great.
Yeah.
You don't just like, you don't take the path to greatness without any pushback or anything. Nobody's ever done that because nobody would consider you great.
Yeah.
They're like, I mean, you just said what everybody else thought. Like, it's the people that are like the outliers that question, they go through adversity, they get knocked down, they come back. There's a million things.
Well, it's crazy. When I was starting this podcast, I asked numerous friends, like, should I do this? 80% of them probably told me, I don't know, or like, probably not a good idea, or think they would, not that it wasn't a good idea, but they would tell you negative things that could happen because of that. And then there was two that were like, why the fuck aren't you doing this? Like, just fucking do it. Like, why are you talking about it? Like,
Yeah, who gives a shit? You fail, you come back. Can I tell you a cool quote I heard the other day? So
absolutely.
the owner of Fit Soda,
He does the podcast with you too,
Yeah.
right? Involuntary jiu-jitsu, right?
Involuntary yoga. Yeah.
yoga. That's right.
So Chris,
Totally butchered that, but yeah, no, you guys are good together, man. Like, I enjoy that podcast. So.
thanks. So
Yeah.
Chris Miller, he's my boss there. I have a partnership in the company, but he's my boss, and he's the CEO of the company, founded it, started it. That's a whole cool other story, but he told me one of the coolest quotes I'd ever heard the other day, and I'd never heard it because I can't remember what we were talking about. We were talking about criticism and hate and everything, and he goes, have you ever heard the term, nobody's ever built a statue for a critic? Because nobody gives a shit. Like, critics are not remembered. They're just always the ones that are like, like negative everything. It's like the people that become great. They'll make a statue of you because you just like endured all the criticism, kept going. You believed in something. Anyways, it was super cool to me. I was like, man, I've never actually heard that.
That's awesome.
I don't know if he made it up or what.
No,
I
it's
didn't
a
ask, but
famous quote. I can't remember. Jeremy,
Is it?
you might
Okay.
have to look this up. They don't make statues of critics. Sorry. Yeah, no, there's a ton of great quotes out there. Like, have you read the book of Four Agreements?
Yep. Love that
Fucking
book.
awesome, man.
I've
Like,
read it
be
twice, so
impeccable with your word is like,
I'm about
how
to
great is that? I mean,
do the audiobook again, actually.
it's legit.
I feel like that's
good
a
one.
once a year one.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Like, or even just like, that's what I love about Audible is you can actually bookmark stuff, so it'll save like 10-20 seconds of it, or you can make notes or whatever, so you can go back, like if you just wanted to listen to one line before your fight or whatever, right? Like,
Yeah.
you could go back and listen to that. And I know Dustin's big on that. Like, let's dive back into MMA.
Yeah.
We went
I
down
know, I
doom
was
and gloom
like-
for a while,
I was
but
just going to say we could go back on it.
but
if
I
you want.
love what we do here because of that. Because the conversation could literally go anywhere. We haven't scripted any of this. It's literally just come in. Next thing you know, you were sick. Now we're drinking whiskey. But yeah, this is where we're at. So, Dustin Jacoby, I was doing a little bit of homework. Like, I remember your name. Like, my ears perk up when I hear your name on a fight card. I'm like, okay, cool. Yeah, I know that dude. And maybe it's because I follow Colorado fighters, because I feel like maybe I'm not the guy with the native bumper sticker, but there is like a connection to your hometown, right? Like, yeah, Colorado raises badasses, and like
I
that
love
Mile
this
High
state.
lore, and like fighting at altitude, and that whole thing is I think it's cool.
I
Like I
love
worked
this
out in
state.
Denver today, and I was like, damn, I think I ran my fastest mile in a couple of years,
Yeah.
because I worked out in Denver. But, where I was getting with that is like I literally follow Colorado fighters, and there's so many here to follow. So like my ears perk up when I hear you on the card or whatever. And I never really put 2 and 2 together because since I've had the podcast and it's been crazy, we've had Dustin Jacoby in a couple times. I was going back through. I was like, I'm going to go watch because I love UFC Fight Pass. And I love the fact that I can go back and watch these fights that date back 10, 20,
Forever.
30 years ago, right? Like
I think you can
30
watch
years,
UFC
dude.
1 on there.
You
Yeah.
can. And you can look it up by fighter specific and all that sort of stuff. And it's so rad. But like going back through that, I just typed in Chris Camozzi and went back just to see, who you had fought and stuff. And I'm like, oh shit. Chris Camozzi versus Dustin Jacoby. I'm watching this right now. Dude, I was like, if we would have had a microwave here, I would have went and popped some popcorn, dude. Like I was that invested. I was like, I turned the shit on and it blew my mind because now, even though this happened a long time ago, you're coming on. I know Dustin personally is a friend now. I would call him a friend.
Yeah, he's one of my best friends.
I know he's one of your best buddies, so we're not even close in that realm. I'm not trying to un-BFF of you.
One M.
Yeah. But go to the Fight Pass, actually, because I don't think it'll be...
Oh, did I lose it? Did I lose?
No, you should be... maybe you did. Maybe you
think I
exited out of it. Just go back to UFC Fight Pass. But anyways, I don't know how much of it we can show on here. Just make sure you don't go to the wide shot on this one. Post-production or Jeremy. But yeah, anyways, we going back and watching this, and you guys must have kicked each other in the nuts like 6 times.
Did
each.
we?
I don't know. It was just like nut shots.
Dude, I
because
haven't watched it in so long.
you were Southpaw, he's Orthodox. Like it was awesome, dude. It was awesome to watch, like, know that you were coming in and then watching some of your fights and knowing what you've done recently. And then
He's on a tear.
Yeah, he's on a tear right now. But it was so rad watching you and Dustin go at it. Did you know each other prior to that and were friends?
Acquaintances, I guess. So
Okay.
oddly enough, God, I look like young. I have no muscles.
Is this the fight?
I have no tan. I don't have a tan still. Yeah,
Dude,
this is
you look young, yeah.
funny
Dude,
story.
he's so scary.
These guys are like, how old were you then? 20, 22, 23, maybe?
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
So Dustin was younger than me though.
There's that
Dustin-
knee.
Dustin had like 7 fights maybe at the time. He got in the
Yeah.
UFC quick.
But you had a little bit on him though, right? Coming into this?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I had a lot
Or
of fights.
more experience.
I had a lot of fights outside the UFC, and then I want to say he was my 3rd UFC fight. But so prior to that, we had met. We were on the same card.
Do you want more of this?
Yeah, I'll do one
I'm not going to force your hand either.
Nah, I'll do one more.
If we need to call my limo driver.
Oh no, I'm good. It's actually. Oh yeah, I guess we did. I don't even remember that. I don't remember us kicking each other in the nuts.
I'm good.
So him and I were in Vegas. This fight was in Chicago. Both of our previous fights, I did kick him in the nuts. Take that, Dustin.
Oh, he got
You're
you
never
back,
having
dude.
kids
Don't
again.
worry.
Or I said again. He doesn't have any kids, but you're still not having kids. Oh yeah, there's my Josta logo. So from
Yeah.
Hatebreed.
Yeah, a little Factory X on there. And
Yeah. What was I saying? So we met. We both fought in Vegas. Who did I fight?
We could probably look it up on here.
I honestly don't remember, but we both lost on the same card. But we had met there, right? So it's kind of funny how like all things tie together. We're in the same workout rooms. We're fighting 2 different people. The fight before this, wherever it was in Vegas, and so we just start to talking. You know, like I talk to everybody when I'm there. Like I'll talk to my opponent if we're walking by, we're in the same elevator, or whatever. I'm like, "How you doing?" You know, like I don't have a problem with it. It's normal. But he was there fighting somebody else, and we strike up conversation, and he's like, "You're from Denver, huh?" I'm like, yeah. And he's like, I'm from Colorado, actually. I'm like, no way. You know, like that's that tie right there. So he
Right.
grew up in Fort Lupton. And I thought he was like an Illinois guy. Oh, yeah, he did kick me in the balls.
Yeah, there was that nut
Fuck you,
shot.
Dustin.
No, it happened like 5 or 6 times.
I
dude.
don't
That's
even
why I was like,
remember
holy
that.
shit. I was actually kind of laughing about it.
It was
because I'm
again.
like,
Was that the same one? Or
Yeah, I went
Oh.
back to it.
this is back when Bruce Buffer, this made me realize too, he used to wear normal suits.
Yeah.
Like just a plain black suit with a white shirt.
He might have not. So
It gets funnier
It's
the more you
old
watch
as
it.
shit.
So funny enough, here's a little piece of history too for the UFC. This is the last unaired prelim ever.
Really?
Yeah, this was before Facebook, everything. Right after this, they
So
started.
this wasn't on TV.
You
then.
couldn't watch it.
That's probably why I didn't watch it before now.
Yeah. It was the absolute
Wow.
last unaired prelim ever in the UFC, and then after that, they went
crazy.
to all their streaming services and stuff.
Yeah.
Because I think the main card was on Fuel TV. There it is again. So we got to talking while we were there, and we were both always training at the same time. Yada yada. And he was cool, you know. We got along good. I think we ended up cutting weight at the
He's
same
a great
time.
guy.
Oh yeah, you can't not like the guy, even if you fight him. And so we both lose our fights that card. We go home, everything, and Dustin was saying, our other, who's my friend now, but he was Dustin's like really good friend, Brian Foster. I don't know if you remember him.
Yep.
He was like, you're fighting Camozzi next. And he's like, nah, like, what do you think? Sure enough, like a few months later, you get a call. I think I'm in bed. It was like at 7 at night or something, probably later if I'm in bed. But I get a call from my manager, and he's like, all right, we got your next fight. It's in Chicago. You're fighting Dustin Jacoby. And I was like, fuck. Like, really? You know, it's like you just start to like somebody.
Just got a bond with this dude, right?
I'm like, all right, cool. The UFC doesn't negotiate. They don't care, especially when you're on the undercard. Like, oh, you're doing it. Unless you're hurt,
Right.
you're doing it. So
Like
whatever.
scared to say no, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't really say no.
And I didn't know him well enough to where I would say no, but I was like, man, I like the guy. So we fight, but getting on the plane, I'm leaving Denver. I'm with Mark.
You guys are on the same flight?
No,
Okay.
my seat. So, you know, it's like United. I think there's 3 seats. I'm here. Dustin's grandparents sit next to me. And
That's even worse, dude.
this like cute old couple, right? I'm getting on
From
the plane.
Fort Morgan, yeah.
I'm getting on the plane, and his grandma, she's like, "Is your name Chris?" I was like, "Yeah." How's it going? Like, had no idea. And she's like, "I'm Dustin Jacoby's grandma. You're fighting my grandson." And I was like, "Oh wow, like nice to meet you." And she was like, "Good luck. You're gonna need it." And like, and I've gotten to know his grandparents. Like, I've hung out with them. I've gone to dinner with them. I've been to their house. Everything since. But it was just funny. Like, I'm in the window seat, and then they're in the like aisle and middle.
yeah.
And she's like, "Good luck. You're
They got
gonna
you
need
cornered.
it." And I'm sitting in the seat, and I was like, "Thanks." And like, you know, start watching a movie or whatever I was doing. But it was just funny, like especially getting to know them after.
That's hilarious.
And like she'd made me dinner and stuff, and like, you know, she's passed since, unfortunately. But it was just really funny, and I told him that, and he's like, "No, she didn't." And I was like, "Yeah, your grandma told me good luck. Like, I'm gonna need it." And he's like, he started laughing. He's like, "She didn't." And I was like, "No, I swear to God, she did." And he goes, "Dude, that's my grandma." Like, and his grandpa just kind of sat there quiet, like shaking his head. And yeah, we fought. I ended up winning. I mean, it was a tough fight. It wasn't like,
Oh, no, it was a brawl. I mean, it went to a decision, right?
yeah. And,
Yeah.
you know, we kept in contact, and then he decided to come out to Denver and start training a little bit, and then made the move. So
Was that the only time you guys had fought? Or did you fight?
Yeah, that's the
Right.
only time we had
Okay.
fought.
But then you trained together for a long time, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So he came out. He would stay at my house. His wife was back in Illinois, so he would stay with me for like a month at a time and try out the gym. Because to his credit, back then he was like, actually I don't know if it was back then when he was first starting at Glory though. He wasn't training with anybody. He was like running, hitting a heavy bag. Just
Well, he trained under Matt Hughes for a while,
He
right?
did,
But when
yeah.
he moved to Iowa to do that or something.
actually
right?
at this point he was probably with the Hit Squad.
Okay.
So, But yeah, so I think I broke his nose in this fight, and then there's a point. I have a picture of it still. He snapped one of my fingers.
Oh, is this where you had the?
My fingers were stuck. Yeah. And funny enough, if he had kind of listened to his corner, there's a point later in the fight, like third round or something. My fingers are stuck. It looks like I'm throwing like a gang sign, like West Side. My fingers are crossed because it snapped, and I couldn't get it back. And his coaches are like, shoot. I couldn't throw a punch. I don't know how I would have like.
Right, I
defended
remember
a
that. You
takedown.
were only throwing right.
Oh yeah, it's right there. I'm like
yeah.
pulling it. I had to like pop it.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess it was the first round. Or no, this is
No,
third,
this is
yeah.
second round. Second. Yeah, because you got it back in the third.
But I
There's
remember,
a young Mark there too.
yeah, I remember
Yeah.
thinking like, man, if he would have shot a takedown, I don't know if I could have stopped it, because like I couldn't grab anything.
Yeah.
I couldn't make a fist, and the fingers just like over here. But yeah, I ended up winning, and dude, I always root for him. I love that dude. Like, it's cool to see. I think
He's such a great human, man.
I think
I've only known him a couple years, but he's a great guy.
yeah, I think myself included, but honestly, like, I had a lot of experience. Still needed more. Like, technically, when I watch this, I cringe. But I think he was pushed to the UFC too quick. I'm so glad he made it back.
Well, you guys have both had 2 runs, right? Like,
I might have had 3.
Really?
Yeah.
okay.
But I'm so glad he made it back, because I used to tell him that, you know, he was kind of like, I think I'm done with MMA. And I'm like, dude, you had 7 fights. Who has 7 fights and goes in the UFC? There's some now, but for how skilled he is, but he just needed like a little bit more time. And I don't think my experience really won this. I think, I don't know, if we're being honest, I threw an inside kick that like made him fall, and I grabbed the choke, and it was kind of, it wasn't like planned. I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to kick his leg, he's going to fall, I'm going to choke him.
Hey, this is fighting though, man. You're talking about 2 guys that are at a fucking pro level. Like, anything could happen. I don't care who you are.
Yeah,
Right.
it was an opportunistic thing. My experience didn't make me like run over him or anything, but I'm so glad he decided to like not give up on MMA, because seeing him now, there was a point he was doing really good in kickboxing, and I was like begging him. I'm like, dude, the UFC will sign you. Just come back.
Yeah, he crushed it at Glory, didn't he?
Yeah, and it took some determination for him, because he was making decent money fighting in Glory. For him to come back to MMA, he had to fight locally for like shit money.
Right.
That's why he was kind of like, like, I'm making this much money over here. Why would I fight some killer
There's the
for
nose.
Yeah. Why would I fight some killer for like $3,000? Or probably less back then. And then I cornered him for those fights, and he did it though. And then they did sign him. And I'm so happy that it worked out, because that dude is so athletic.
He's making a real run now too, and
He's probably one of the most powerful strikers I've ever
I
trained.
love watching him fight.
Even when we drill, like, I'm like, dude, why are you swinging so hard? We're just drilling. And he's like, oh, my bad, I'm not. Like, he just has heavy hands that like thump you. And he's athletic as hell. I mean, he was a college
That farmer
quarterback.
strength,
Like,
right?
yeah.
Where did you take his nose out?
What's that?
How did his nose get broken?
I think it was in the first round when
Oh, it was early. Okay.
I think I dropped him with a hook. And yeah, it was a tough one.
Yeah, shout out to Dustin. Dustin, if you're listening to this,
Gnarly.
you know, you've probably been the most shout-outed person on this podcast. Like,
Came
we've
with a
had
list.
You're definitely top the list of people that have been named. Because I know Dustin shouted you out. I know Derek shouted you out.
Oh,
I'm
really?
trying to think. Yeah, there's been a ton of people. So,
Oh, this is fun.
yeah.
And so I was like, I could talk about this stuff all day.
Well, we're
There's
going to
just-
have to have you back, dude. We're coming up on 3 hours.
Oh,
so
are
we're
we?
going to
Holy
have to
shit.
wrap it up here pretty
Yeah,
quick.
no, let's
yeah,
do it.
dude. We're half a bottle of whiskey in.
How about we do it after this fight? I got to get another first round
Let's
knockout.
fucking do it. Dude, I want to come down to your fight. I'm going to try to make it down. I'm going to try to rearrange the schedule. We don't have to run out of here.
No,
Like,
no,
we don't
you-
have to end exactly at 3 hours either. But I want to be respectful of your time. I got some other shit I got to take care of too.
Oh, no, I do too.
But dude, this has been fucking awesome. You're welcome back. You're right down the road, so you're welcome here anytime. You could run up the.
Oh, no, I'm good on that. I'm going to drive. I'll drive.
All right. But yeah, dude, let's hang out outside of here. Let's go shoot our bows, whatever, dude.
Let's do it.
It would be awesome. But yeah, so coming up, what do you have? Bare Knuckle is happening. You have your podcast. There's so many things that Chris Camozzi has going on. A modeling career.
Yeah.
Wife to keep track of that has her own businesses and all that sort of stuff. But just let's shed a light on some of that. The big thing is the fight April 29th, right?
Yeah, April 29th, BKFC, so Bare Knuckle Fighting
That's
Championship.
First Bank right outside of Denver. It's in Thornton, right?
Yeah,
Or
Broomfield.
something? Broomfield, yeah.
Come out in person if you want. You can hit me up. I have a ticket code. If you follow me on Instagram or anything, there's a link in my bio.
That's
buy
how we'll
tickets.
buy our tickets.
There we go.
Hell yeah.
We do get credit for those, so yeah, do it.
Can you shout it out right now? Or
It's a link.
oh, okay.
But
Damn.
if you go to their website,
we can put it in the show notes, actually.
Oh, okay.
So we'll just drop it in the show notes. It'll be a live link if you're listening to this right now.
yeah, the promo code is Camozzi, so CAMOZZI.
Okay, rad.
But yeah, come out. I'm working on the after party right now. I'm gonna have one in Denver, so you guys
Hell
will have
yeah.
to definitely come out. Should get you guys to come do like a live podcast at the after party.
Okay. Yeah, I'm down. We got some mutual friends. Shout out to Half Face and Beto, and
Yeah,
we didn't even get into that, but we will on the next one.
Half
for
Face
sure.
Blades will be in the house. Sponsor of mine. I gotta say, Levethian Defense. I don't know if you've heard of them. Okay, so they're sponsoring me for this. They're coming out. They make ARs and pistols and all that.
I think
good
that's
stuff.
super rad that this sport, because the UFC took all that away, and it was awesome to have all those like sponsors back in the day, like individualized.
They killed me on it.
Kind of turned into like a little bit of a clique or whatever, but they're allowing that in Bare Knuckle now.
Bare
right?
Knuckle does. That's why a lot of guys are going
Okay.
there.
Hell yeah.
Bellator and Bare Knuckle, like the UFC sponsorship stuff. Definitely, guys lost a ton of money. I lost a ton. I had some cool
Oh
ones.
yeah. Hell yeah.
Yeah.
You got some awesome ones now. I mean, Half Face, I think anybody that owns one of their blades or follows them,
Yeah, don't cut
it's
your
like a
fingers off.
dream come true, right? To be an actual sponsored athlete by Half Face Blades is fucking rad, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's just a cool story, cool company, cool people.
Great.
That's what I
people.
like working with. So I don't, not to take too long, I don't take sponsorships from people.
There's no
products that
time restrictions, by the way. So.
My mom loves me, and my mom buys everything that anybody that supports me. So
Oh yeah.
I
Is she
don't.
rocking a Half Face right now?
Huh? She probably does have one. But so I don't rep companies that I don't like. I don't like the fakeness.
We're the
of
same
it.
way here.
As long as I like it, I'll do it. I mean, I've turned down big companies that I'm like, I don't really like your product, because my mom's gonna go out and buy it. My family's gonna go out and buy it, and if I hate it, then I'm a liar.
Be impeccable with your word, man.
Here we go. I read the book, I read it a couple times or listened to it. But yeah, April 29th, First Bank Center. I'm actually fighting another buddy of mine. Yeah, my opponent is, I'd say acquaintance. We've known each other a long time.
you guys fought in the UFC, didn't you?
No,
Okay.
we've trained together a little bit.
I'm getting mixed up with too much shit.
We've known each other for a long time. Actually, when I got offered the fight, I texted him and I was like, "Hey, did you get offered this fight? I'm just wondering. I don't know if they're bullshitting or not." And he's like, "No, I did." So I was like, "All right, let's get it." And he's like, "All right." So yeah, it should be an interesting one. I've never lost to a friend, so hold on to that. Check out my podcast, Involuntary Yoga. Do you know what that
great.
means?
I have no. I'm assuming jiu-jitsu or
Yeah.
some sort of MMA reference, right? Like
It's like, so you go to yoga because you want to. Involuntary yoga means I'm going to bend you even though you don't want to.
yeah,
I'm
you
gonna-
find yourself. That's the only reason I've ever picked up yoga. I mean, my wife goes to it all the time, and she goes and does all the crazy fucking Bikram yoga
Yeah.
and the saunas and all that shit. And I'm like, that's the only time I've considered. Like, since I've started jiu-jitsu, is like, God, I got to get more flexible. I got to try to get to that rubber guard or whatever it is.
Don't do
right?
that. You're going
Yeah.
to blow your knees out.
Yeah, I'm too big for that shit.
Yeah, that's not big guy jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
But yeah, it means I'm going to bend you no matter what.
Yeah.
I'm going to fold your clothes with you in it.
I love that.
Little pun.
You guys are so good. The production value is fucking amazing. I actually need to get some pointers from you. I'm going to hit you up
Yeah,
after this.
I
But
got you.
you guys are killing it in that space, man. I love the whole camera angle, everything. Like, it's good. And
Oh,
you
thank you.
guys just had my buddy, or our buddy, Luke Cadillo on. We have so many mutual friends.
I know.
It's cool that we're doing this. So yeah, shout out to all those
Yeah,
dudes.
definitely. And then Fit Soda. Like I
Yeah.
said, it's my company, and you can find them everywhere now. We're gonna kind of blow up. We're taking over.
It's really good, dude. Like,
Thank
I'll be
you.
drinking this, and that's one thing. Like, trying to be health conscious and be on a decent diet, to have these little I call them cheat, like hack codes. Like I love energy drinks.
Yeah.
Working for Monster, I got all the free Monster I wanted back in the day.
Yeah.
And that's why I love like this Jocko Fuel has been fucking awesome because I'm literally addicted to them. And now I think I got a new addiction with Fit Soda because
there's no energy in these.
It tastes like I'm drinking a
Sprite.
A Sprite. It's fucking awesome, and it's good for you, and I need as much amino acids as I can get. And there's a bunch of vitamins in here.
Yeah. No sugar, no coloring, no calories.
This isn't an advertisement. This is honest. Be impeccable with your word, people. This is honest opinion. It's fucking good shit. So
awesome.
Goes really good with this whiskey, actually.
Yeah. Well, cheers. Thank you. See you guys.
This has been awesome. Chris, real quick, Instagram, websites, anything like that. Where can people find you and follow you?
Oh, yeah. So let's see. Instagram, I think, is the only place you can find me now, at Chris Camozzi MMA. I just got kicked off Facebook. I got to figure that out.
Shit.
I posted a picture hitting mitts in the ring, and they said inciting violence and suspended my email.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I swear.
Wow.
So I'm gonna have to make
Strange
another
world.
one. So if you're listening to this, I'll put it out. But
Okay.
I'm on Twitter. I think it's at Chris Camozzi.
Yeah.
And yeah, come out to the fight. Bare knuckle.
Awesome, man. This has been super rad. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you.
And good luck with the fight. We'll be there watching.
Definitely.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Jeremy, good? All right. See ya. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the Mountainside Podcast. If you haven't had a chance to do this already, please take a moment, follow, like, subscribe, or rate on whatever platform you catch the Mountainside Podcast at. Also, if you'd like some more information on upcoming episodes, safety tips, access to all of our affiliates, and all the badass discounts that we get here at the Mountainside Podcast, check out themountainsidepodcast.com.